All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola with you guys. Lots of stories to get to. Republicans cheating in Wisconsin and Michigan. I'm full of venom on that, and I will be unleashing that in a little bit. And then we also have, of course, the giant news about Michael Flynn. My friend John Iadarola over here made a nice YouTube live video out of it yesterday when the news broke. I checked that out as well. But we're gonna give you a lot more details right now.
Although I did make a mistake in that video. The mistake was that I filmed it in front of my board game collection, so that's all anybody in the comments is talking about.
Yes.
Everybody's like, yee, Michael Flynn. Hey, Citadels. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, Donald Trump might be impeached. On the other hand, what board games are you playing, John?
Ticket to Ride Europe. Interesting choice. A little bit more complicated.
Okay. Okay. So lots to get to, especially on Flynn. As usual, I'll have some thoughts on the details of that I think are important. Okay, and also time to celebrate a couple of different things. First of all, Amplify is going great. We've got some new media offerings for you guys. You guys can help sponsor The Intercept. So I was, as I mentioned yesterday, I thought someone had already gotten that, but they have not, and that would be great. It's at tyt.com/amplify. And you could also get C-SPAN, some Young Turks membership. By the way, Chris Cuomo reached out yesterday after I reached out to him and said that he appreciates the membership that you guys sent. So, in fact, let me see if I can look at this up real quick and find out who did that. Cuomo should have had this ready. Here we go, Alex Wortman. So, Alex, thank you for doing that, and Chris says thank you. So, you could also get Senator Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Susan Sarandon, Jim Carrey is a wonderful progressive. Get them Young Turks membership and their staff as well. I think that Pelosi and Schumer staff would be particularly interesting targets to actually hear a progressive message for a change.
Have we done Fox and Friends yet?
Ooh, we did Laura Ingraham, Hannity, and Tucker Carlson.
You get Fox and Friends, you get Trump.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay. We're gonna have to think about that one. And of course, if you give under $1,000, we give it to journalism students. So that also affects the media and amplifies the progressive message. And if you give $150 or more in any category, you get a Young Turks t-shirt that we designed specifically for this. I say we, but in fact, it was one of you guys, Jade Neighbor, who designed that. So please participate. And I'm trying to, oh, there it is.
That
looks beautiful.
Okay. Better in black, I think. That is a very striking black t-shirt.
Yeah, I love that in black, but and black's better for overweight guys like me. But that's actually as good as it gets in white, if you ask me.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so last quick thing about that. While Anna's away, I'm trying to catch her on the membership drive. Not to great success so far, but help a brother out. If you're gonna join, it's a good time to join. Actually, for two reasons. One, tyt.com/Cenk is a way to join, okay? But also, because of the holidays, we're doing a week free trial. And yesterday I had, for example, the Just Democrats on, and they had an extraordinary post game where they explained how the group was formed, how they found Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who was the one person that helped the most that no one knows about.
What?
That was super interesting.
I don't know.
Well, hello, free trial, tyt.com/holiday. Okay, this is the time to do it. So you get 7 days free. Check it out. Yesterday's postgame was excellent. And in today's postgame, by the way, I'm going to talk about Bernie Sanders gathering at the Sanders Institute over the weekend. I went to Vermont, and all my rowdy progressive friends were there. And it was, if you're a progressive, it was Woodstock. It was Coachella. It was badass.
Yeah, I was just busy.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Right, not invited, but still. I'll tell you all about that in today's post game. Again, either use the tyt.com/holiday to check it out and sample it, or tyt.com/jenk to join, for example.
I had to wash my hair. I was very busy.
No, I know. John was very busy. They really, really wanted him there. I mean,
I went to a different conference. It goes to a different high school.
Okay, Mayor Bill de Blasio kept asking, "Where's Iderola? I came here for the Johnny Pie. I don't know where he is." Okay.
Give it a couple years.
Okay, not yet. All right, let's do the news.
Okay, I guess we can do that. We got a pair of stories to start off the show with where effectively in 2 different states, although close by, the Republicans have decided that they're done with this whole democracy thing. They've been looking at the trends. They know where this is going. It doesn't favor them, and so they're moving on into a different system. I don't know which, they'll find something. So let's start off in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, Republicans have passed a set of bills that effectively strip a number of different powers away from the incoming new Democratic governor and attorney general. This is a story that we've been talking about for several weeks, both on this program and on the Damage Report. They were talking about doing this. Scott Walker, the current Republican governor, was very enthusiastic about this plan. Not enthusiastic about his governorship having lost power, but if it's going to be a Democrat, then he's totally fine with it. So if you haven't seen that previous reporting, let's talk about some of what was in this package. One part would prohibit municipalities from allowing more than 2 weeks of early voting. They don't want you to vote. They're not fans of it, so they're barring those. Like, again, this is, I guess, a smaller version of states' rights, town rights. No. If your town wants a lot of early voting, no, they are banning you from doing that. But in particular about those 2 positions, other provisions would give the legislature full control of a state economic development agency, so the executive department being pushed out of that. Block the governor's ability to write regulations and allow the legislature to hire its own lawyers to file lawsuits on behalf of the state. So previously, that was something that the governor's office would do. That's what the state suing something actually means. But now they're like, no, you don't represent us. If you want to use your new power to expand Medicare inside of, or Medicaid, I should say, inside of the state, we're not going to allow you to do that. We're the ones who now have that power. And as long as we can hold on to our very carefully gerrymandered seats, you will never have control over that process.
Republicans hate democracy. And given this development, I think it's very fair to say. And it's not just by itself, so it's not just the Wisconsin Republicans, Michigan Republicans also doing similar measures that we're going to talk to you about a little bit later in the program. And they also did in other states like North Carolina. So the minute that the voters decide to put the other party in charge, Republicans go, screw the voters. Who cares what the voters want? In fact, in South Dakota, there was ballot measures, and now again, there are ballot measures being challenged by Republicans all across the country that said, hey, we don't want our legislators to be corrupt. This was a couple of years ago. And the Republican-controlled legislature laughed and said, democracy. Who cares how you voted? No, if you vote for ballot measures that we like, we say that's fine. If you vote for ballot measures we don't like, we kill them. So they just killed it. What's the point of a ballot measure if the legislature can just come in and go, yeah, but I want to be corrupt. I want to take gifts from lobbyists. I want to have them give me an unlimited amount of money. In South Dakota, they have the worst laws in the country on corruption. Montana had some of the best laws. South Dakota has the worst laws. And the politicians, particularly the Republicans, said, no, I like our corruption. I love the corruption. So, and I hate democracy. So you voted for Democrats? Sad day for you. I'm going to strip them of their powers. And so that's what they're doing in Wisconsin. But of course, look, this is my ongoing beef with the mainstream media because I am right and they are wrong. And I know that bothers them, but they'll call it even. Well, I can't quite tell who likes democracy more. But wait a minute, the Republicans pretended that they cared so much about the will of the voters. that they couldn't seat Merrick Garland for 14 months because they wanted another election to come so that the voters can decide who should be the Supreme Court nominee.
Yeah.
In this case, well, the voters have decided. They just decided. It wasn't 14 months ago. It's not 14 months from now. They just voted right now. So their will of the voters could not be more clear in Wisconsin. And what do the Republicans say? Just kidding. We hate democracy. The only thing we care about is power. So rest of the media, call it what it is, but you won't. You will help the Republicans deceive the American people over and over again by equating truth with lies. And you'll do it in this case too.
It used to be Republicans versus Democrats, but now it's Republicans against democracy. And all of those of us who want to have some say need to come together. You gave an example with Merrick Garland where the Republicans, thanks to their ability to hold on to the Senate, which they only have because the way the Senate is created gives them a massive, massive benefit that these small conservative rural states are able to massively outnumber far larger states like California, obviously. And so if you vote in a Democratic president, screw them. They are able to use this thing that's weighted in their favor to take control of the other branches or exert control over them. Here and in places like North Carolina, they've gerrymandered the legislature, so then the legislature just takes all the power to itself. In one state, they got a minority of the votes, but they maintained a supermajority of the seats because they have so tightly and carefully gerrymandered it. They're viciously opposed to democracy, and they know, like, the rise of white nationalism, the rise of talking about immigrants, replacing us. Tucker Carlson talks every night about that. All of that is tied in with this. It is a fear that their numbers can't hold out. And they will gerrymander as long as they can. They will use tricks like that as long as they can. But they're worried that someday even that won't be able to let them maintain their control of power. You would think that they would change their positions. They would try to actually appeal to people. And maybe someday we'll get to that. Maybe when the back of the Republican Party is broken in two, they will have to rethink things. But until then, just expect more Wisconsins, more Michigans, more North Carolinas. So Tony Evers is the incoming Democratic governor. He was just elected. He'd been worried about this. Now potentially might have to fight back. Let's go to a little bit of him being interviewed about this topic.
It's a power grab, plain and simple.
Certainly, and we had lots of people voting for us, voting in the last election, November 6th, and we won fair and square, we won on the issues, we won fully knowing what I'm about and what Scott Walker is about. And I see this as essentially the Republican majority trying to repudiate and turn back the clock
Okay, so he acknowledges what it is. So what are they going to do going forward? How is he going to attempt to get his power back?
Can these measures, do you think, be reversed, or do you think you're going to be stuck with them if they are passed?
Well, given the rancor and the posturing that's going on now, I think it's going to be very, very difficult. The time to stop it is now. That's the bottom line. Of course, we can try to reconstruct it during the budget or some other time, but the fact of the matter is, this is bad public policy, and it's telling the people of Wisconsin that their vote doesn't count. And clearly, I can't believe the Republican majority thinks that's a good idea.
If I like him. But if we had been doing a test run of that interview, we would have finished that and I would have said, okay, scrap all of that. We need to start from scratch because that is not how you message about this topic. Where is the urgency? Where is the passion? Where is the defense of democracy?
Yeah, here's what I would have said. Well, I plan to absolutely break the back of the Republican Party in Wisconsin in the next election. And I'm on here on CNN to tell every voter in Wisconsin that the Republican Party has great disdain for you, does not like democracy, just spit in your face. And so you're crazy if you vote for a Republican in Wisconsin because they will not abide by the elections and they're un-American. So make sure that you vote against every Republican in Wisconsin. That is the correct strategy to take because that's also true and it allows you to fight back. Being polite, how's that working out for us? And for the media, who say, oh no, you guys are biased because you have facts and the other side doesn't. And so, but I gotta call it even somehow. So then show me a blue state where the Democratic legislature has stripped a Republican governor of its powers. Show me one. Show me one. You can't show me any. It is not even. The Republicans do hate democracy. All they care about is their donor money and how they're gonna please their corporate donors, and they'll destroy democracy to do it, and they're doing it right now in Wisconsin, Michigan, and North Carolina.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Michigan, why don't we move on to that? The Republican-led Michigan legislature just gutted a number of bills designed to benefit the working class as sort of the culmination of a months-long plan to circumvent the will of the voters. This is a little bit complicated, but bear with me. So not too long ago, activist Daniela Atkinson and about 400, and a number of other activists got 400,000 signatures on a petition in an effort to get a minimum wage hike and paid sick leave on the state's November ballot. So a number of different ballot measures that they wanted to get the people to vote on because they knew that people support these sorts of things. The Republicans didn't want that to happen, so they came up with a plan in advance of the election. To keep the provision off of the ballot, they approved legislation in September that looked similar to what these activists were pushing for. They wanted to raise, this new bill that they had back then would raise the minimum wage from $9.25 to $12 by 2022, and similarly hike the tipped minimum wage to $12 an hour by 2024, up from the current $3.52. And so that's what they did. But even back then, if you listened closely to them, you could tell that this was a plan that was not going to survive contact with the midterms. So the midterms happened, the ballot measures weren't there, although other good ballot measures did pass. And as soon as you got past that time when the people could directly vote on these incredibly popular pro-worker bills, then the Republicans, maintaining their majority, decided, oh, okay, well, we dodged that bullet. And now we just get rid of most of the benefits from those bills. We said we would do it before the election, but now we're not gonna do it, and there's nothing you can do for at least a couple of years. So both in terms of the minimum wage, the plan that they have now would effectively, it would raise it to about what the activists had wanted, but almost a decade later, meaning that if inflation continues the way it is expected to now, you will see effectively no benefit for the next 15 or so years, 12 to 15 years. You also have another bill that would have exempted employers with fewer than 50 employees. Oh, sorry, this is the new bill, would exempt employers from fewer than 50 employees from having to provide paid sick time as required under existing law. So a ballot measure would have enshrined the need for sick leave to be provided no matter the size of these industries. They dodged that bullet as well. So minimum wage, tip minimum wage, sick leave, all of these things, people trusted the Republican Party and they got knifed in the back for it.
Yeah, so let me be clear, the Republican Party hates the average American worker. They have this lie that they've been doing for 4 decades now called trickle-down economics. And the idea is we give giant tax cuts and subsidies and all the breaks to the rich and to corporations. And eventually it trickles down on you. Here's the problem. It hasn't. For 40 years, wages have been stagnant as corporate profits have soared and the top 1%'s wealth has grown exponentially. It was always a lie. It is factually a lie. It is inarguable. Then, to rub it in, they go into states like Michigan and go, oh, you want to actually raise the wages of the American worker? Hell to the no. No way. We will fight that with every fiber of our being, including coming up with fake laws, which we then repeal after elections, to make sure you can't even get it on a ballot. Because we know we'd lose a ballot measure. We lost it in Missouri, we lost it in Arkansas, we lose everywhere. You know why? Because people want higher wages. But we will not allow higher wages. We are the Republican Party. That is a fact. It's an absolute fact. But again, the media will aid and abet Republican lies by calling it even. Well, I don't know who's for the higher wages. It could be the Republicans that vote against higher wages every single time, or it could be Democrats who vote in favor of higher wages. And by the way, you want to call out corporate Democrats, establishment Democrats that also don't want to increase minimum wage or any other wage? Great, do that. All I care about is the facts, okay? So I don't care about the Democratic Party, but the reality is some in the Democratic Party fight for higher wages. No one in the Republican Party fights for higher wages, and their excuse is, no, trickle-down economics. I give it all to the rich, and maybe after 5 decades, it might trickle down on you, but I will try to prevent it with every fiber of my being. That's a fact, it's a fact. You report it, nope, I'm gonna call it even. So that leads me to Missouri, back to Missouri and Arkansas. They do ballot measures. In Missouri, they want to increase the minimum wage from $7.85 to $12. That was in this recent election. And does it pass? I mean, Missouri's a red state. Claire McCaskill lost. They voted for Republicans. It's not going to pass, right? Wrong. It passes easily, 62%. Arkansas is an even more red state. They want to increase the minimum wage from $8.50 to $11. In fact, it would go into effect immediately for some portion of it, $9.25 in January. Well, Arkansas is super red. That's not going to pass, right? Wrong. Passed easily, overwhelmingly, 68%, more than 2/3 of the people in Arkansas. So why did they vote to increase their wages, but at the same time vote for the party that tries to make sure that their wages are lower, the Republican Party? Because the media lied to them and told them that it's even. Oh, I can't tell Republicans or Democrats who wants higher wages. Well, your lies aided and abetted the corruption of the Republican Party. That's why the people of Missouri and Arkansas was like, I can't tell who's for higher wages. I know I want higher wages, but I can't tell. Because the media consistently and deliberately lies to you. And part of it is, well, gee, who also wants lower wages? Oh, right, giant corporations. Who is the mainstream media? Oh, right, giant corporations. Isn't that funny? I mean, look at how brutal the Michigan law is. So of course they want to crush your wages. That's well established. And look, John read you the facts. If you don't believe us, Google it. Look it up. Go anywhere you like and find out the real facts. See, we're open to facts, unlike the Republicans who try to do propaganda for you. Okay, so but look at the paid sick leave part. An employer can say, if you want to take sick leave, you have to give me a week notice. What kind of a joke is that? It's literally a sick joke. How the hell do you know if you're going to get the flu a week before you get it? It's a way of saying, I don't care. I don't care if you're on your deathbed. You show up to work, or I don't pay you, or I fire you. And the Republican Party goes, yes, crush the American worker, crush them, right? And the media goes, I can't tell who's in favor of it. Well, God damn it, who just voted to take away paid sick leave? You know, they say, oh, also in this new legislation by the Republicans, if you're going on vacation, and let's say you got 2 weeks of vacation, well, that counts as sick days. But no, that's not a sick day. A sick day is when you get sick, right?
But that proposal itself is sick.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit.
So I guess the rest of the media is never ever going to be honest with you, so we'll do it. The Republican Party hates the average American worker and will fight to make sure you have lower wages. And they have won over the last 40 years. That's why your wages have not gone up at all as your productivity has skyrocketed, and they took all of your work, all of your hard work, and they put it in the pockets of corporate executives. That's what the Republican Party stands for.
There's actually one more sick wrinkle to this. So we were talking in our last story about how much they hate democracy, and so they played some tricks, obviously. But you might think, okay, well, those things didn't make it into ballot measures, but what about the ones that did? I mean, you said that some actually passed. And yeah, some did pass, and they were good. There was actually one called the Promote the Vote ballot proposal to make it easier for people to register and to vote in that state. They're coming after that too. So a set of bills sponsored by State Senate Majority Floor Leader Mike Kowal would fundamentally alter that ballot proposal, allowing same-day voter registration up to and including election day the way it should be. Instead, that deadline would be pushed back to up to 14 days before the election. Provision in the ballot measure allowing for automatic voter registration would also be altered to allow people to opt out. This, in addition to the ones you were talking about, passed 67 to 33. But it makes it easy to vote, and they can't have that. They can't abide it. And I mentioned this on the damage report today. I just think it's amazing that they can pass something. The only point of pushing the deadline back is to make it so people can't vote. There's no like trickle down voter registration. There's no mythology crafted around it. It is blatantly anti-democratic, and they can do it. And there are no consequences for them doing it.
Yeah, so to reiterate, they also hate democracy. And so there's two examples of that in Michigan, but John just gave you one. And it's not like the Michigan voters were unclear. 67 to 33, couldn't be clearer. Yes, we would like people to vote. The Republicans say, I don't care. Oh, you voted for that. That's funny, because I already told you I hate democracy. So I'm going to try to kill your ballot measure, which was pro-democracy, and I'm going to do it in an anti-democratic way. Isn't that funny? Okay, second of all, they ended gerrymandering and political gerrymandering in Michigan in another ballot measure. Katie Fahey, Voters Not Politicians, wonderful group, wonderful organizer. They did amazing work and they won as well, 61%, okay? And then Republicans are like, ending gerrymandering? Well, then the majority would get to rule. And then we would have to live under a democracy where obviously our loser ideas can't possibly win. Well, how will the corporations rig it? No. So what are they doing? They're trying to water that down as well. Why? Because they hate democracy. They hate it. They hate it. If they think they could win, great. But they know that in their heart of hearts that they are losers. And then if you actually have majority rule, they will lose forever. So they're like, I don't know, my corporate donors gave me this money to crush the workers and to destroy democracy. So they're gonna do everything they can. Yeah. Look, as you can tell, I'm pretty clear about my opinions of the Republican Party. They are the worst of the worst. I'm pretty clear about my point of view on mainstream media, but now let's move to the Democrats for one quick point. Hey, you guys wanna ever get up and fight? So look, you won all these seats, you won all these positions in Wisconsin and Michigan. Why does it take me to attack the Republican Party in a way that is factual and warranted? Why isn't anyone from the Democratic Party breathing fire on television today? Why aren't they coming out and saying these things? Well, but that would offend Republican voters. I don't know if you know this, they're on the other side. They voted against you, okay? That doesn't mean that if they win that you don't respect democracy. That would be the opposite of the point we're making. But it does mean you should make your own case, you idiots. If you don't make your own case, it makes it easier for the mainstream media to go, well, I can't tell. One side's super strong and says democracy sucks and everybody should be paid less. Another side says nothing. So maybe I won't even call it even. I'll just give the Republican point of view and I'll be done with it. And that is the state of America today.
On Wisconsin, Randy Bryce has been really good in drawing attention to that, being involved in the protests and all that.
Yeah, Iron Stash has been absolutely wonderful. He lost his election, but that didn't stop him at all. He didn't go back and sulk. He didn't go walking in the woods. Unlike Obama, he put his walking boots on and got right back into the fight and said, not on our watch. So at least there's somebody fighting for you.
Why don't we take our first break?
Apparently, yes. When we come back, we have Flynn. Wonderful disaster ahead for Donald Trump. Can't wait.
What he did to women has no place in America.
At least he wasn't targeting children.
Just because she's 18, now she doesn't matter? Step out of your social media bubble, Tim.
A new party game is taking America by storm. It's called Cards Against Womanity. One player reads the prompt.
The pedophile who got off easiest is blank.
The others fill in the blank.
Roman Polanski.
Woody Allen.
R. Kelly.
Then yell at your friends till the buzzer sounds.
Polanski still makes movies every few years in Europe.
Woody Allen still makes movies every single year in America.
R. Kelly peed on a child, and he just released a Christmas album.
The fun never ends.
The worst perv of all the pervs is blank.
The biggest hypocrite wearing a Time's Up pin is blank.
James Franco. The perv who's been treated most unfairly is blank.
Aziz?
Believe women, Tim.
Play as individuals.
When Ben Affleck came forward, you guys drove him away, and that
This
was
is why women don't
unnecessary.
speak out, because of people like you. You don't
Answer mine. There's no way you can ignore the
Or in
intersectionality.
teams.
We're trying to be allies here.
The fun goes on and on.
You have no idea about
Cards Against Womanity.
Who won?
Nobody.
Don't forget to check back for daily expansion packs.
Dan Harmon? I liked him.
But that's not all. Order today and we'll throw in Guess Who Sexual Misconduct Edition.
Does your perv prey on children?
No. Did he grope someone and have a dynamite recipe for flatbread?
I don't know who this guy is. Does he have a terrifying button in his office?
Yes.
Is it Donnie?
Yes.
This is the wildest, craziest motherfucking race I've ever seen. What are we gonna do? Not make brackets? Let us whisper victory. Wait a minute!
Good night and good luck, everybody. These are the two most unpopular candidates we have ever had in our nation's history. Jesus Christ, there is significant boos every time Hillary Clinton's name is mentioned.
Everyone I know is voting for her out of fear. He was looking at Donald Trump's hair like it was cotton candy.
That's right. Get him out. Get him out.
It's political game. They don't care about lives.
Bow your head. This is what we mean by the establishment press. Do you trust the establishment media?
Yeah, no.
We have a good time on this show. What else are you gonna watch?
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
Fuck you.
They did 100 squats a day for 30 days straight. I was like, how hard can that be? That doesn't sound very hard. So I'm gonna try to do this for 30 days and see if there's any difference in my physique.
3 weeks later.
Steve, how is your exercise regimen coming along with your squats?
No, I did 100, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
You're pacing yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Back on the Young Turks, Cenk and John with you guys. Brian from the member section writes, and sadly, it's not just Republicans in red states. I'm in a union in California and I get paid no paid vacation or sick leave. Man, it's just, Jesus, man. It is, for the average worker, it's absolutely crushing out there. I was talking to, this is the kind of thing we normally talk about in the post game, but real quick, I was talking to somebody from Germany the other day, a businessman. And now he's well off and he's a complete capitalist. And he's like, wow, you Americans are just brutal to your workers, brutal. And that's totally right, unfortunately. I am Sock writes in, I'm in a poorer red Michigan district and nobody even knows that this happened. Okay, and that's also unsurprising. Unprecedented madness says, unfortunately, people will continue to only vote for their party unless the media does their job and reports the facts. There is little hope. Kim writes in, the DNC stands for do not confront. Unfortunately, also true. Last one from the member section, Crash83K says, can we start a crowdfunding campaign to get TYT to do exit polling for the 2020 primaries? TYT managed, publicly funded. What do you think?
That would cost millions of dollars.
Yeah,
that's gonna be difficult.
Yeah, it's probably a bridge too far, brother. I appreciate you offering, but we asked too much of you guys already, and you guys have done wonderful things, like get people like Ocasio-Cortez elected, and the Just Democrats elected, and you do membership, etc. But that would cost millions, and I don't think that's our wheelhouse. But hey, man,
2024.
Yeah. Hey, you never know, man, but we got to spread the word. Okay, so speaking of which, I'm gonna give shout outs to the folks who just gave to the Amplify program, which amplifies the progressive message and helps the show. Diane Ranieri from Pittsburgh, that's awesome, $150, you're getting a t-shirt. Stephen Buchanan from Oakland, also $150, also a t-shirt. Mark Grasso from San Francisco. Philip Canzano from, and I didn't know this, Beto Country, Texas. Oh, I thought it was Beto County. I was like, there's really a county in Texas named Beto?
God, he is
that
popular.
Seems improbable. Is there also one named Ted? Okay. Anyway, from Beto Country, Texas. Thank you, Philip. Also $150. The journalism students that you just got a membership to, also thank you guys, and you get a t-shirt as well. tyt.com/amplify. All right, John, what's next?
All right, just a little story for you. Special counsel Robert Mueller has released his sentencing guideline memo for Mike Flynn, who pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about a year ago. The most important thing coming out of the sentencing memo is what he thinks the sentence should be. And he's pretty clear. The special counsel praised Flynn's assistance to their investigations as substantial, writing that a sentence that does not impose a term of incarceration for him would be appropriate and warranted. So he's effectively saying that it would be perfectly fine for the judge to sentence him to no time whatsoever, which I don't think people were necessarily expecting. And he could have spent quite a bit of time in jail, actually. The crime of giving false statements to the FBI carries a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison and a maximum fine of $250,000. Though federal sentencing guidelines call for Flynn to face much less, between 0 and 6 months in prison and a fine of up to $9,500. Mueller, in that same section of the memo, cited Flynn's exemplary career in the military and public service when recommending a sentence at the low end of the guidelines range. So effectively, if the judge listens to Mueller, and there's some reason to believe that he will or she will, Flynn might not spend any time in prison. Now, to the assistance, what form did that assistance come in? Well, Mueller said that he sat over the course of about a year and a half for 19 different interviews with Mueller or someone of the team, and also said his early cooperation was particularly valuable because he was one of the few people with long-term and firsthand insight regarding events and issues under investigation by the SCO. And sort of related, that his cooperation might actually have led others to cooperate with the investigation who might not have otherwise done so.
Yes.
So that's the top level stuff. We do have some interesting tidbits, things that are in the memo, things that are technically in but are blacked out that we can get to, but that's the top line.
Yeah, so let's talk about the most relevant parts and how much trouble Donald Trump is in. So partly the answer is a lot, and the other part of the answer is we don't know because it's blacked out. Okay, so 3 parts. One is his cooperation with the special counsel, so that's seems fairly straightforward, and that's not good news for Donald Trump. So the other one is another criminal investigation. Super interesting, but it's redacted. Right?
Why don't we bring up the next graphic while you talk through this so people can see the section that you're referring to?
Yeah, and the relevant parts totally blacked out. Okay, and then the third is an investigation so secret they won't tell you anything about it. They won't tell you if it's criminal, federal, state, what it's about.
Criminal, civil, having to do with something outside of the country, having to do with inside? Is it about his work with Turkey? Is it about Ukraine? Is it something purely domestic? We have no idea.
By the way, that's real. That graphic is real.
That's actually real.
Okay, that is their paragraph on what the third investigation is about. In other words, we do not want you to know.
This is the most amazing thing because you see that second investigation, they give you all the details on it, or at least identifying it. In the first, they do redact the specifics, but they at least let you know it's a criminal investigation. What would it take for the third to be fully redacted, where they don't want you to even know the nature of that investigation? I mean, it could be referencing one that we are familiar with that they don't want to identify as having a relation to Mike Flynn, or it could be something totally new.
So if it was just about the Russian interaction, well, that's the heart of the matter, and hence it would be bad enough without the 2 surprises that are in there. So what's the message that's being sent here? Partly that Flynn's case has just gone through the courts and this is when his sentencing is up. But partly Mueller's sending 2 different messages. One is, I don't want to tell you what my other cards are yet, but I've definitely got a couple of aces up my sleeve. I don't think you redact a deuce or I got a 4 spades, don't show anybody, okay? And then the second thing he's doing though is since Trump is going around saying, hey, I might pardon people. I could pardon Manafort. That's definitely on the table. I could pardon people. This is Mueller in essence saying, look, I'm suggesting no prison time for people who cooperate. In other filings, he has said you should throw the book at him. Whether it's Papadopoulos, where he had his infraction was really minor, and he's in prison now for 14 days, right? But even so, Mueller was like, this guy's a bad guy, and he did not cooperate in the way that he said he was going to. He gave media interviews in a way that was totally unsanctioned. You just throw the book at him. On Manafort, they are absolutely scathing. So Mueller and Trump to some degree are playing a game here. Who has more power? And Mueller's like, I can let you out of prison too, or a lot of times I could hand you off to state level where you cannot be pardoned by Donald Trump. So that's part of the undertone here in terms of what's going on. Now, in terms of the actual special counsel one, so what did Flynn do? So he had interactions with the Russian ambassador, Sergei Kislyak, and then he lied about it, and that's the crime. But what was the interactions about? See, that's very important. So there's two lies. One, he talked about, he did not mention that they had a conversation about how Flynn, before he came into office as the head of the National Security Council, asked the Russians to vote with Israel on a United Nations Security Council vote. That's not gonna send anyone to prison, okay? An American official was secretly helping Israel. Breaking news, that you'd have to lock up all of Washington, okay? The second one, though, was a discussion about lifting the sanctions on Russian oligarchs. Yeah, we have a winner. So that's the deal. Now the question is, did Flynn tell them? I mean, they say throughout this document, incredible cooperation. Talk to us about who else on the transition team knew that he was talking to the Russians and authorized it. Gee, I wonder who that could be. So did Trump tell Flynn to tell the Russians, don't worry, we're gonna lift the sanctions? We don't know yet, it's redacted, right? But Mueller seems incredibly pleased with the information that Flynn gave him. So, and of course the degree to which it's specific is very important, and I can't prejudge it, but that's one of the mother loads.
Yeah, I just want to briefly mention too, because I know some people who don't necessarily follow this much might not know exactly why a lie of this sort is important, whether it's Mike Flynn lying to the FBI during that investigation or Donald Trump lying about business ties in foreign countries or things like that. Like, why is that a big deal? Well, obviously lying to the FBI is literally a crime. It's been a crime for a very long time. But the issue with those sorts of lies is once you put it out there and you say that one depiction of reality is true, if you are talking with someone in a foreign country and you lie, the FBI doesn't immediately know that you lied to them, but that foreign power does know. And that theoretically gives them leverage over you, whether you're Mike Flynn or Donald Trump. If your depiction of reality is false, the FBI and potential investigators don't know about it, but a foreign power or some other intelligence service does know about it, and there is a threat of jail time if it were to come out, then that can be used to influence you, either directly related to the thing you were talking about or potentially something completely unrelated. That's the purpose of a lot of intelligence work, is to get that sort of influence. And it seemed like the inner circle of Donald Trump was willingly just throwing it out all over the place.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts is a quote in this document that says, Flynn, quote, also provided useful information concerning ... And then it doesn't tell you the rest.
They ran out of characters in that tweet.
So, look, we're getting closer and closer to the moment when Mueller finally shows his hand and goes, this is what I got. And then things will not be redacted.
Well, to someone they won't be redacted. It is entirely possible that we won't know. I mean, Whitaker, it seems, was put in to make sure that as little of his findings actually ever make it public possible.
Yeah, not buying it. There's no way that it stays permanently redacted. So they
Area 51.
A Democratic House can subpoena it. It'll go out in court records if Mueller actually gets to publish it. Even if he doesn't, it can be leaked, et cetera. They're not going to be like, oh, it turns out Trump's owned by the Russians. Oh, Whitaker fired me. Never mind, just burn the report.
I don't know, he's a pretty savvy guy.
Okay, I don't think that's how it's gonna work.
Okay.
By the way, Flynn is now the fourth to be sentenced in connection with this investigation, and there have been over 50 indictments. So sometimes we go to Trump rallies and Trump supporters say, well, they didn't get anybody, so what are they wasting their time for? 50 indictments, 4 sentences. Yeah, they got people already, let alone what's in the redacted part and what they're gonna do about Trump. I wanna leave you on this note on this issue though. I do remember Michael Flynn saying something about being tough on criminals and people who might have abused their power. And I wonder if the court should take this thing into account as they consider as sentencing. Let's take a look.
We do not need a reckless president who believes she is above the law. Lock her up. That's right. That's right. Lock her up. I'm going to tell you what. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. I know the special counsel does not want him to go to prison, but if they did, that would have been compelling to play during sentencing.
Want to take a short break?
Yeah, let's do it.
We actually, in this next block, you were talking earlier about trickle-down economics and the lies sort of underlying that. Donald Trump apparently honest for once about something connected to that.
And Ocasio-Cortez does it again. Bold proposal, shaking Washington, as my sister called it, giving us life. Okay, so get the whole show at tyt.com/join. We'll be right back.
I've tried to plant my place so that there's something in flower and something edibly fruiting 365 days out of the year. I really have that need for a Garden of Eden. It's been that way ever since I was a kid. This whole idea that you could just grab some fruit off of a tree and just sit down and stuff that into your face is just something I have to have.
Every one of these nurseries set out samples, the way the drug dealer will sit you down at the coffee table.
Get this for flavor. Brown sugar, pecan pie, with a little sweet potato mixed in.
And you're like the addict that goes, I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to eat.
Before long, it became an obsession, and I was no longer a normal person.
It blossomed into a full-time case of insanity.
Whoa. This is one of the holy grail species that I've been after. I've had 20 years of great experience at failing. I don't like to fail, okay? I'm a bad loser. A mango is always a negotiation. It's a love story.
Richard, go Richard.
When you're in the boughs of a mango tree, it's like being in your mother's arms.
I don't know why they call this ice cream bean. I think they should really call it cotton candy bean.
Yeah.
My bones are made with bananas, and my flesh is mango.
Oh, we're gonna go straight?
Yeah. Where we're going, we don't need roads. What was that? Whoa.
Welcome to Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had. It's amazing. So glad to have you here.
I know, I'm so happy to be here.
No.
Once a booger eater, always a booger eater, I'm telling you.
I will say once a booger eater, always a booger picker.
I mean, if you start making your bathroom life more exciting than your real life, I think it's a really dangerous world.
I put that ice in there a while ago.
Yeah, I can see.
Oh, that's needed after a day like this.
Cheers to Brett Ehrlich.
Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week. Lauren Glouthier, who rescued a dog from a hunting dog shelter. She said she'd cuddle next to me and start sniffing that little spot on my nose. It turned out to be basal cell carcinoma that the dog sniffed out. Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. This is one of the most amazing physical feats you'll ever see in your life. What it is the world's fastest cotton candy eater. And good morning. 1, 2, 3. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, Dave. As you can probably see, Skype froze. Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
All right, back on the Young Turks. So, I forgot to tell you this, guys. So, kind of a big deal, so I thought I'd share with you now. Young Turks has just passed another milestone. Not saying anything, I'm just saying 10 billion views.
Damn.
All right, let's do it. So that's 10 billion lifetime views, and that's YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms that we are on. And thank you guys. I mean, God bless your heart. We keep going up. Obviously, you know, you've seen a lot of these videos: the 1 billion views, the 2 billion, 5 billion, 7.6 billion. That's the number of people on the planet. Now 10 billion. I had a knucklehead conservative today on social media be like, "How's that possible? That's more people than on the planet." Yes, people can watch 2 videos or maybe even more. Okay, so
that person might pop up in our QAnon story at the end of the second hour.
Okay, now back to today. Bishop Bader from Richmond, Virginia, giving to tyt.com/amplify, $150. You get a T-shirt. Thank you, Bishop. Appreciate it. I'll give you 2 quick comments here from the members section. Coleman says, Jank, you should play the Hulk in the next Marvel movie. Love the anger at the corruption. More people should be mad. We won't be able to be mad when our world is destroyed. Man, that Bernie Sanders town hall, as with all of them, just when you see the depth of the problems, it gets, gets worse and worse. And so on climate change, we gotta go. We gotta go right now, right? We gotta start fixing it right now. And no matter whether it's Trump or not, we're doomed for the next 2 years. At a minimum, for 2 years, we're gonna go in the opposite direction.
We did not have this time to waste.
We didn't. Okay, anyway, but thank you for the Hulk comment, I appreciate it. As it turns out though, the guy who plays the Hulk is also a huge progressive. Mark Ruffalo is a wonderful progressive.
And in particular on that topic.
Hey, that's right, that's right. He ain't green for nothing.
Oh.
How do you think we got the 10 billion views?
His secret is he's always concerned about carbon emissions.
You wouldn't want to see this planet angry. That unfortunately is true.
Yeah.
Okay, Left Click Commando says, and just think about what Flynn got to walk from. This is a great point. He was literally acting as a Turkish agent and conspired to kidnap an American and deliver him to Turkey. The insane value of the information he divulged must be explosively valuable to let Flynn walk. I both love and hate when you guys make better points than me.
I love it.
I love it because you're our members and we do the show together and you're the Young Turks, and thank you for adding to the show. I hated that I forgot to make that point. So not in this case, not even forgot. It was like rolling around in the back of my head and I never crystallized it. So thank you for doing that for everybody watching the show. Yeah,
don't get too mad though. I did make a reference to that third case possibly being about Turkey. That's what I was talking about.
No, I hear you, but not good enough. Left Click Commandos did one better. Remember, man, kidnapping someone and delivering them to a foreign country is insane and wildly illegal. That's not a small 0 to 6 month sentence, right? And they let him off on that too. Great point. Man, that must be good information. What I'm racking my mind about is, what could Flynn know that's valuable enough? Because he doesn't know Trump from the past, so it's not gonna. It would be really surprising if he knew anything about, like, so Michael Cohen could have a lot more dirt on Trump than Flynn, but maybe he knows very specifically, Trump ordered me to talk to the Russians about lifting the sanctions. That's the only thing I can imagine that is valuable enough to get this outcome.
And he's well placed for that, both in recent history and also throughout his career. He has the international contacts. We know he travels there and all that.
All right, excellent. All right, guys, let's keep it going.
Okay, this is a good one. Donald Trump is currently presiding over a massive rise in the national debt, but he's probably not going to be that worried about it. And wait until you find out why. This is reporting coming from the Daily Beast saying that in early 2017, when senior officials offered Trump charts and graphics laying out the numbers and showing a hockey stick spike in the national debt in the not too distant future, he responded, "Yeah, but I won't be here," according to a source who was in the room when he made that comment. So they're trying to drill into his head, "You moron, your policies are gonna raise the national debt," which you and conservatives always say you're against. And he's like, "Yeah, I eat a fillet of fish every night in bed. I'm out of here in 2 to 8 years."
Yeah, look, I actually think that quote is perfectly emblematic of Donald Trump, not just on this issue, but on everything. He's like, "What's in it for me? Hey, I want to pump up the economy now. If it crashes later, who cares? I won't be here. I'm going to do these tariffs and they could be potentially disastrous in the future. Who cares? I won't be here. The debt, we were always lying. And certainly Trump was lying. He's like, what's in it for me? If it explodes on your head, I mean, think about how callous that is. If it ruins America later, who cares? I won't be here. I'm not here to represent you Americans, Donald Trump is saying in that quote. I'm here to represent myself, enrich myself, and have a good legacy, et cetera, later. And by the way, and that's why I say it's emblematic of him across the board. Look at his business dealings. What would he do? He'd borrow a ton of money, and then he'd go bankrupt, and then he'd tell people, "Sorry, I'm not gonna pay you." And so same kind of idea. You give me the money now, later, when you need the money back, I won't be there for you.
Yeah.
Sad day for you, I'm not gonna pay you back. What's in it for me? It's all about me, me, me. This is not, if he's running a business, I still think that's an abhorrent way of thinking, but that's up to him and the people who do business with him, right? But if he's the president of the United States, he's supposed to represent you guys, not himself. And that idea is laughable for Trump. Represent you guys, no, all about me.
Yeah, and I think this is a not often talked about enough component of conservative political ideology. You can see it in climate change, obviously. Like all of those people in the Senate that are against doing something about climate change have 5 to 15 years left to live, and that's it. So they'll see some of the terrible effects as extreme weather events become more common, but then they'll be gone, and they don't care. And philosophically, we know that they don't look to the future. Conservatives look to the past, an imagined past, a fictional past, but always looking backward. Progressives look to the future. We imagine what we can accomplish, what world we can build. I don't want there to be climate change, not just because it's gonna wreck my life, but because in 300 years, I want my great, great, great grandkids to be serving on the USS Enterprise. Like, we actually think about this idyllic world that we would like to create, and we're willing to do something about it now. We live in the now so that people can live in the future someday.
John, I gotta do something rare here and give you credit. That's a great way of framing it that I hadn't really crystallized either until now. That progressives look to the future and conservatives look to the past. By definition, they believe in tradition, heritage, and maintaining the past. That's why they're conservative. They don't want things to change. So which party are you in favor of? The one that wants to plan for the future or the one that wants to cling on to the past, which is impossible anyway? It's a no-brainer. I know they're ascendant now because of money in politics and corruption, et cetera. But conservatives are consigned to history to always lose.
Yeah.
Because you can't stop change. So they're forever going to be losers. And Donald Trump's a good example of that because all he ever does is lose in business. And now, unfortunately, he's losing on your behalf as president. I am getting a little tired of losing on for the country and for the planet under Trump. But I wanted to point out one other thing. So one article on this was from the Daily Beast, Lachlan Markey and Aswin Supsang writing here. And look, credit, the facts are right, everything is right. But unfortunately, and I just singled them out, but it's really not on them. Everyone in the press does this. But in this case, I'm quoting them, they said this episode illustrates the extent of the president's ambivalence towards tackling an issue that has previously animated the Republican Party from the days of Ronald Reagan to the presidency of Barack Obama. But guys, that's just not true. If you said it is an issue that the Republicans said they care about since Reagan, that's fair. But they have never balanced budgets. Reagan created a giant deficit. George W. Bush created an even bigger deficit. If you want to give credit, as I have, to George H.W. Bush for at least raising taxes and limiting the damage that was done to the deficit and to the debt, that's fair, okay? He didn't balance the budget either, Bill Clinton did. Obama cut the deficit in half. Trump has now exploded it. So since Reagan, the Republicans in action, indeed, have never cared about the deficit. It's a giant lie. So yet you're blaming Trump for this, and you should. But the reality is, he's just so unsophisticated that he's accidentally honest about what the intentions of the entire Republican Party is. They're like, yeah, we cut taxes and destroy the debt when we're in charge, and then we blame the Democrats afterwards. He's like, I don't get it. And generally speaking, he's right. That is exactly what Republicans do, and he is no different than them. Bush's tax cuts were worse. They were significantly larger. It's just that even Bush had enough sense not to say it out loud. Okay, we taking another break or?
Yeah, probably the break between the hours. Come back, we've got Deval Patrick and also Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, so the Deval Patrick story is really instructive. Great piece of journalism. I want to give a shout out on that when we come back too. But basically, journalism that made a difference. Deval Patrick was going to run for president. We're going to give you an update on what happened on that when we come back. And it was because, ladies and gentlemen, they got him. So he was Democratic governor of Massachusetts, but did he really live up to progressive ideals? Fascinating story. We'll do that when we return.
It's here.
Yeah, great. Hanukkah.
At TYT, this has always been the place to come for Hanukkah, and so I think this year is no different. It's just that Ben and I are here to tell you to become members. I want you to become a member because for me, at this most holy time of the year, it's a great way for me to earn. What points or whatever for you to join, the TYT.
Where you become a TYT member.
Right.
By going to TYT.com, in my case, /Ben. In your case, TYT.com/Ben. Right, because you don't have one.
I don't have one. For some reason, I don't have one.
We're two of the three best known Jews at TYT.
Right. Yeah, but the drop off is enormous after us.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like me and you, and then it goes like you don't even think of Jesus. Right.
You don't, right? Yeah. But he was born,
That's right. Born a Jew. That's right. Yeah,
exactly. Sure. Who would you say is the next best known Jew?
I would say Dave Kohler is probably
right.
Dave's third. Yeah.
Right.
And then literally anyone else.
Right.
And then someone after that.
And then Rick.
Yeah,
yes,
right.
So,
right.
So it works out well. Also, you can go to Shop TYT because there are all sorts of tchotchkes and schmatas, but you should buy whatever you want and join and put /Ben there because then he gets nothing too.
That's right. So next year in Jerusalem.
An 81-year-old woman has been awarded $2.9 million after she sued McDonald's.
It wasn't like the McDonald's employee took the coffee, threw it on her.
Who brings these frivolous lawsuits?
All kinds of people that are jackpot justice oriented. The media in corporate America did a masterful job. Mrs. Liebeck became a joke.
Businesses use a number of devices to keep the public out of the courts.
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
I was burned so severely that they didn't think I would live.
Are you going to show me the burns?
What?
Yes, if I saw injuries like that, I would definitely take a different view of it.
She was drugged. She was raped, gang raped. She had to have reconstructive surgery, sir.
Ms. Jones has had her day in court.
4 years to fight to get in court is not a day in court.
The Appeal was a book I published. It's completely fiction, and it's completely true.
It's a story of the purchasing of a Supreme Court seat in Mississippi.
It's a good payoff. You put money in a judicial race, it can have literally $1 million impact on your company.
The U.S. Chamber mounted a very, very large and expensive campaign against me.
When you're pregnant with twins, it's really important to determine how many placentas. When I went in, it should have been immediately followed up with an ultrasound.
You just want to change what happened, knowing that it was preventable.
Go to court and to sue, you have to go through a lot of trouble to do it. It affects your life. You're going to be attacked in all kinds of ways. Going to court to gain justice is heroic.
All right, back on the Young Turks. A bunch of comments for you guys. The member section first. Captain Cornball says, of course Trump doesn't care about the debt. He'll just be a smart businessman and declare bankruptcy. He has literally said that what's the big deal? We could just declare bankruptcy later for America. Doesn't understand that it's not a personal bankruptcy. That would crater the entire global economy and would send us into a Great Depression, perhaps like we have never seen before. He's like, what's the big? He's so dumb. Oh, God damn it. All right, anyway. Yes. Gabby Marita says the Trump doctrine. It may be my fault, but it's everyone else's problem. Yeah. Gabby, right again. Excellent point. Unprecedented madness says Trump not caring about the consequences of his actions is the perfect representation of how the entire GOP works. Now I'm going to go to Twitter. Wordburn Steinem says it's a mad Trumplandia world when Cenk has to remind us that kidnapping someone and delivering them to another country is highly illegal. Yeah, I mean we're having debates about, well, is obstruction of justice really illegal? Should cooperating with law enforcement be made illegal? That's Trumplandia, where you live in the upside down and there's this weird monster that it tracks you or.
Demogorgon, something.
Demogorgon or something. Speaking of science fiction, EDOD2002 says Star Trek reference, thank you to John. And then asks, would you want the Enterprise or the Enterprise D/E? And that's so dorky, it even lost me, even though I love Star Trek.
I mean, I would be perfectly happy with the D. That now sounds kind of bad, but I would prefer the E, I think. Different models.
Okay, yeah, of course. John, perfectly happy with the D. Okay, we can move forward now that we've established that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Of course not. And so Sledge Hockey 1 says conservatives want to cling on to the past.
Oh my God, no, I almost said that. I didn't want the story to go on longer, but I said, which do you prefer, clinging on to the past or Klingons in the future? That's what I was gonna say. Oh, we've got some nerds that watch this show.
Oh wow, I haven't done member shoutouts in a while. Tony Picarazzi, which is an awesome name, and Betsy Markman. Thank you, Tony and Betsy. You guys are gonna get a great post game today where we talk about the Sanders Institute. I went there over the weekend. All my rowdy progressive friends from Bernie Sanders on down were there. I'll tell you the really interesting interactions we had there. tyt.com/jank. To become a member, help me catch Anna. So far, it is not happening.
What's it look like?
It's immovable. She's still up 49.
49. How close am I to you?
Let's do some quick math here. 27, 48. Ooh, that doesn't look good. 75. You're 75 behind me. Okay,
people.
For a while, you caught me and passed me, brother.
Just give me 3 subscriptions.
Okay, he's a reasonable guy. Now, here's a good reason to subscribe. We recorded a show for just the members called Hostmates. It's like the Newlywed Game. Me and Anna versus Ben and Michael, John and Brooke, and Ricky and JR. Okay?
Oh, nice.
Now you're thinking Ricky and JR Okay. Brooke and John, are they really gonna win? Man, there were some awesomely awkward moments too.
Oh, it was so fun.
But some surprises in there. God, you guys are gonna love it. Okay, everybody check that out. tyt.com/cenk. And if you're not a member, it is a good time to do it. tyt.com/holiday gets you a free week to just try it out, okay?
There is a moment you have to see Michael Shore's expression in response to an answer from his partner. It's just amazing.
Yes, all right, check that out if you're a member.
Yes.
Okay, what's next?
Okay, I look forward to 2020. I know we're all anxious for those. Deval Patrick is former governor of Massachusetts and has been talked about as a possible contender for the Democratic nomination for the presidency in 2020. So much so, in fact, that he was one of the people, one of the politicians, I should say, who met with former President Barack Obama earlier this year about that possibility. But apparently, no more. He is prepared to announce that he will not be running. Patrick informed staff and advisors of his decision Tuesday, the sources say, with an announcement to come as soon as this week. So, why is that? Why is he not running? Well, we don't know for sure. Obviously, we can't get into his head, and it probably will never be confirmed. But just a day ago, there was some pretty amazing reporting of his past and his connection to a Republican involved in some of the worst patterned foreclosures in recent American history. So let's start stepping back through history. When GOP megadonor Roland Arnold, I should say, came up for the ambassadorship for the Netherlands, Patrick wrote to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to heap praise on him, even though he's a Republican donor. The billionaire was a good man, Patrick said, and his company AmeriQuest was a good company. Arnold had, quote, really stepped forward after a settlement in the 1990s. Quote, he used the experience to make a better company and would make a fine ambassador. So who is this guy? What is this company? What is this all about? Patrick and Arnold actually got to know each other in 1996 when Patrick helmed the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. Arnold was running Long Beach Mortgage Company, which the DOJ was investigating for racial discrimination in the subprime lending market. Subprime lending, not as big of a topic of conversation back then. It'll be huge in about a decade after that. The DOJ and Long Beach eventually reached a $4 million settlement for that racial discrimination. So he's obviously involved in that case. After that, Arnold developed his mortgage operation into AmeriQuest, the company referenced in the first graphic, which became the world's largest subprime lender during the housing bubble. So what did they go on to do? Well, AmeriQuest's business model used high-pressure sales techniques to push homeowners with existing mortgages into new loans with sky-high interest rates. If the family couldn't pay, investors who bought the loans would acquire the house through foreclosure. When home prices were soaring during the housing bubble, it was a tremendously profitable strategy, turning AmeriQuest into a very successful company and Arnold into a billionaire. So one of the perfect examples of what led to the financial collapse was a guy at a company that Patrick Deval was involved in kind of giving him a slap on the wrist back during some other illegal behavior and then pushing for him politically even after he had transitioned into this new far worse form of mortgage providing.
Well, it's actually slightly worse than that. So they oftentimes targeted minorities and minority communities, and Deval Patrick, who's African American, helped cover up for them. And that's just, I feel uncomfortable saying it, but it's true. And New York Times business columnist Joe Nocera called AmeriQuest, quote, the worst bottom feeder of them all. And so Deval Patrick first, gave him a little slap on the wrist, $4 million. Are you kidding me? I mean, did you see the size of the subprime lending disaster that wound up happening? Now, look, be fair, it hadn't happened yet, and so Deval Patrick didn't know the degree to which they were going to crater the entire economy, but he knew what they were doing was wrong. That's why they were in a lot of trouble. $4 million, even back then, was a tiny, tiny settlement for what they had done, and then conveniently winds up being on their board. That's exactly the corruption and the revolving door that's despicable. He then went on to work for Texaco, Coca-Cola. There was controversies there as well. Once again, Deval Patrick steps in and says, no, there are no racial issues here. That's fairly convenient as he's getting paid a ton of money. His experience, to be fair, again, at Coca-Cola was a little bit more mixed than that. He did also call them out on some things, so I'll give him credit on that. Continued to get paid a tremendous amount of money from Coke, even after he left for advice and counsel, etc. Then after he's governor, he goes to work for Bain Capital, the same company as Mitt Romney, and round that revolving door goes. And of course, who was encouraging him to run in the first place? According to all the reporters, Barack Obama's inner circle. They thought Deval Patrick was a great candidate. He had a wonderful resume that was pro-business. I mean, that's got Obama written all over it. Change on the outside, continuity on the inside, and
is it pro-business? I mean, it seems pro-business. I mean, it's pro-business in the way that businesses are. Pro-business means pro-short-term business. But if it leads to a cratering of the economy that makes trillions of dollars in wealth simply disappear overnight, I mean, I guess it's good for the executives. They got off okay. It's probably not good for business in a larger sense.
No, John, that's a terrific point. And the catchy little slogan they use of pro-business is not remotely true. It's pro-crony capitalism. It's buying off politicians to let you get away with illegal practices, uncompetitive practices that actually hurt the market and are in fact anti-business, anti-free market. Republicans do it on an industrial level, but yes, as you can tell from this story, Democrats do it as well, and oftentimes they're rewarded for it. Ooh, he's working with business companies that rip people off and covering up for them. That's presidential material. They said, well, not only was he quote unquote pro-business, but he was a seasoned prosecutor, locked up a lot of people. And did he fight for criminal justice reform? Not when he was a prosecutor, and I don't remember any giant initiatives when he was the governor of Massachusetts, but he put people away. But they say he also had lofty rhetoric. Ooh, you're good with the rhetoric. Wow, that'll make up for your shortcomings on policy. Yeah. But in Washington, it will. That's why they considered him a really interesting candidate for president. People were buzzing about Deval Patrick, but now he's out. And I want to give tremendous credit here to Zach Carter at Huffington Post. That's journalism, watchdog journalism that holds government officials accountable. Huffington Post clearly leans progressive, but that doesn't mean that he spared the Democratic Party. He went and investigated this, looked into it, broke the story, and it had a huge effect. So Deval Patrick clearly thinking about running, Obama people encouraging him to run, boom, not running anymore. Yeah. Oops, got caught with your hand in the cookie jar. That's what journalism is for. So great job by Zach Carter.
Why don't we turn to, I guess, the opposite of an explicitly pro-business thing, a pro-worker politician. Okay. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is in that process before being sworn in as a congresswoman, where she's giving us a lot of access into that transition process, how you get your office, how you get around, how you set up a staff. And she's made it very clear that the problem of unpaid internships, which is obviously a problem around the country, is also a problem in DC. She's been tweeting about it, saying, this week I went to a dive spot in DC for some late night food. I chatted up the staff. Several bartenders, managers, and servers currently worked in Senate and House offices.
Amazing.
This is a disgrace. Congress of all places should raise MRAs so we can pay staff an actual DC living wage. So lots and lots of people working in the halls of Congress and the Senate not being paid. So she continues on this vein, saying, it is unjust for Congress to budget a living wage for ourselves, yet rely on unpaid interns and unpaid overworked staff just because Republicans want to make a statement about fiscal responsibility. If that's the case, they can cut down on staff to pay them well or raise the MRA. And what's interesting is, so I went to those tweets and I was reading responses to it. And despite the fact that she's very popular, lots of people are enthused about her. She's progressive, she's a democratic socialist, so there's a lot of people who are gonna hate her. And many were saying, well, why don't you do it different? If it's so bad for them, if they don't get paid, why don't you pay them? And then they probably stop paying attention to the story because they don't actually care about whether she will follow through on that, which if you've been following her, you would know that she's gonna do that, and in fact, she is. She tweeted, time to walk the walk. Very few members of Congress actually pay their interns. We will be one of them, and she has announced that she will be paying her interns at least $15 per hour. The same minimum wage that she's pushing for workers outside of DC will be making it in her office when she's sworn into Congress.
So there's actually a good reason to pay political staff more. And it's not like we're enamored with politicians. So this is not Morning Joe, right? I don't know. I think it's fair to say I don't know any show that calls out politicians as much as we do, because we call out Republicans and Democrats. In fact, I'll call out the Democrats a little bit more in a second. But if you don't pay them well, they are more likely to be tempted by lobbyists that come in and go, hey, oh, you're a really good staffer that's helping me put this bill forward. I bet there's a job in it for you later that pays what? 10 times what you get paid here, 4 times what you get paid here.
Yeah.
And in fact, I had Jack Abramoff on the show. He went to jail for corruption. When he came out of jail, he wrote a book about how you do corruption. It was an interesting tell-all book and basically a how-to manual in a sense, warning people about it. Okay, no one's of course paid any attention to it. But he said #1 trick he used to use was, oh, you're doing such a great job. You're exactly the kind of person we would hire. And if they're not getting paid well, it's more tempting. So it's a great point by Ocasio-Cortez there. Now look, you could actually say, well, internships, especially for a lot of small businesses, there's a good reason why they're unpaid. They're an internship, they're not a job. And so that's a fair point. But this is not a small business. This is the Capitol, it's the House, it's the Senate. They have plenty of money. And of course, again, the mainstream media attacked Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez the other day for pointing out that the Pentagon has had $21 trillion in unaccounted money, okay? So now that's a complicated issue. It's on both sides of the ledger, so it's not like they're missing $21 trillion.
Obviously.
Okay, but man, their accounting is a disaster. And are they missing an enormous amount of money because they're not tracking it properly? Yeah, I mean, basically they might have lost tens of billions, hundreds of billions in the couch at the Pentagon, right? But you don't have enough money for the interns? Nah, you don't get to make that case.
Yeah.
Right? Small business in the middle of Wisconsin, just a startup, I get it, right? But not these guys, no way.
Yeah.
So, and again, like she said, she's walking the walk and actually living her principles and driving the rest of Washington crazy.
So I agree with you that if you don't pay them, then they're going to be sort of tempted by lobbyist offers and things like that. But I think there's another side to it as well. If you don't pay them, who do you get? What sorts of people go to be unpaid interns in DC? Obviously people who have money. Now they're not gonna have money, but their families are gonna have money. They can afford to not make any money. So you're not gonna have a representative sample of the American public. You're not gonna have people that have to move across the country. The people who are literally working to craft the bills that these congressmen and senators are pushing are going to be well-off people. They're gonna be people with connections and money. And in this particular case, think about how ridiculous this is if she didn't pay her interns. So she is a congresswoman, she works in DC, but she's not from DC, and half the time at least she's gonna be spending in New York. Would anyone in her district be able to work in her office in DC? No, they're not gonna be able to move and make $0 in a place where there's effectively no affordable housing whatsoever. It's one of the highest price on average rent markets in the country. So you have to do this if you want people who are actually representative of Americans to be there.
You know who couldn't afford to be an intern in Washington? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I couldn't have done it.
Yeah, because she was an average American worker, and she couldn't afford not to get paid and do an unpaid internship. So it's amazing what happens when you have not only an uncorrupted candidate, but someone who's an average person who is a citizen, like it was supposed to be in our democracy, and not a millionaire or a billionaire that's your representative. They actually represent you.
Yeah.
Now let me turn to the rest of the Republicans and Democrats real quick to give you the stats that I promised you. In the Senate, Republicans pay 51% of the Republicans pay their interns. That doesn't sound like a good number, right?
It's not $15 an hour.
Yeah,
it's not guaranteed to be $15.
Right, but at least 51% of them pay. You know, how about the Democrats? Only 31% of the Democrats pay their interns. So the Republicans even do better than the Democrats in this case. And in the House, the Republicans are miserable. Only 8% of them pay their interns. How about the Democrats? Only 3.6% pay their interns. So look, we call it like it is. And so I am oftentimes vicious to the Republicans, but that's because they earned it. And what we're delivering to you is facts. In this case, the Democrats are worse. You call it like it is. And that's part of why people love Ocasio-Cortez, because she calls it like it is.
Can we name some names in particular?
Okay.
So on that Senate side, among those who offer unpaid internships, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Tammy Duckworth, Amy Klobuchar, who have all promoted the Fight for 15 minimum wage campaign, by the way. But all too often, even when we support that, we remember that there's some people who are not at the point where they can even have those jobs. They're fighting just to get the internship. So in response to some of this reporting, Chuck Schumer said that posting was put up erroneously. They did not mean to post that they wanted unpaid interns. Okay, maybe that's the case. I don't know what that means, but fine. Hopefully, this will put pressure on them and they will start to pay their interns. And if that happens, it will again be the case that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez brings something like this up. She is immediately mocked across the internet and probably across a lot of mainstream media. And then it actually starts to have an effect and it pushes the country in the right direction. The same thing that happened to Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna with the Stop Bezos Act, the Stop Walmart Act, their moves on Yemen, all of that. Mocked, you don't understand how things work, you don't understand foreign policy, you don't get the economy at all. Oh, these massive corporations, thanks to the publicity that you've put on them that they don't want, are finally changing their policies? But maybe they get a little bit of credit, but probably nowhere near as much criticism as they got.
Brilliant point by John again. I don't know what's going on today.
I had an energy drink this morning.
So remember, the number one thing that the mainstream media, let alone the Republicans, use against Bernie Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez, et cetera, is they're not practical, they're not pragmatic. And the reality is the only one who's had any practical effect is those two, along with Ro Khanna. You know how many workers got a pay raise at Amazon because of Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders? 350,000. Okay, that's making a real difference. That's practical. What did the corporate Democrats ever accomplish? I'll wait. What did they accomplish under Trump? Well, that's not fair. They can't accomplish anything under Trump. They didn't control any of the branches of government. Yeah, but Bernie Sanders got 350,000 people a pay raise. You know why? Because he tried.
I remember what he did at Disney as well.
That's
helping
right.
to fight with them.
That's exactly right. And Ocasio-Cortez just got a lot of the other Democrats who are practical and didn't pay their interns to go, yeah, of course, we meant to pay our interns. Of course we did. Oh, it was a clerical error from probably an unpaid intern.
They don't know what they're doing.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I think we have to take a break.
Yeah. All right, we got a lot more for you guys, including white nationalists within the Republican Party, and proud of it, literally, when we return.
Hey everybody, welcome to TYT Classics episode 3. I've been on 2 of these.
Why are you doing like a douchey CNN voice?
This has been fun. Good night, everybody.
All right, see ya.
Why do I have a giant smile on my face the whole time?
You're enjoying your
I'm
life.
So excited. I'm like, now I'm like, all right, so I really don't give about this.
I like to think that I'm a good person, but it's possible I've been a terrible person in the past, and I would like to earnestly go back and see if certain things I have said in the past have aged well.
This video where you decided to call your boss a dick on like your 4th day at work.
But see, this is exactly what TYT Classics is about.
Can I just remind you that he started this video saying he's worried that what he used to say would get him in trouble.
The great thing about this is I have no memory of it.
Of course.
None.
I barely remember how I got here.
You know what? If I run for office, they'd be like, look how much he's changed. No, he's only gotten old.
And as soon as I said intellectual courage, I thought, oh, that's good. And then literally 3 seconds later, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about.
But it's a good turn of phrase.
I didn't know what stress was back then. I really didn't. In fact, sometimes I would think to myself, am I really getting paid for this?
So they're telling people, this is the punchline. Old lady's got some.
I can hear the stereotypes coming already.
Should I have said it?
No.
No.
You've come a long way.
Okay, here we go.
When did you leave? When did you leave? Because those were good years.
Just saying, you said the title, so you might get Alex Jones and have some things jumping up on your phone.
No, I'm not looking at Grandma's butt. I'm not. Pause. All right, we're back.
Jesus, oh my God, the kiss I could stand, the sweaty palms.
I've never seen a thirstier man in my life.
Rick, this was fun.
I wish I could say the same.
There you go, that's how it's done.
Should we end it now?
I hope we already did.
Despite the fact that we get a lot of mean, hateful, hurtful tweets about Old School, we're gonna put all the nice ones together and read them to you.
Came in late to watch TYT Old School and I hear Cenk Uygur talking about napkins. Is this the kind of nonsense Anna Kasparian was talking about? Gotta love membership privileges. Gotta love them.
Please have Dave on every 4 episodes or so. Hashtag colorisms, hashtag no cheese.
Yay! I love Old School!
Watching Ben Mankiewicz and Cenk Uygur on Old School talking is exactly like watching Seinfeld and George. I'm not sure if that's a compliment.
I just finished watching season 3 of Narcos and looks like Michael Schur has a huge role in it. Is that really Michael?
Couple things about this video. Dave Kohler looks so badass.
Loving Emma Vigeland after last night's Old School. Did I mention that was my first Old School? F***ing awesome. I agree. They're pretty awesome.
Who's on Old School today? Is there one? At Dave Kohler. I hope it's not Brett Ehrlich.
This episode of Old School has killed me. Who knew a conversation about good and bad underwear could be so hilarious and relatable? Hashtag one last ride. Animals are innocent, dude. There's more than a 73% chance this Old School will be really funny. Cenk Uygur has been up since 4 a.m. so he's tired, hence everything will seem funnier to him. P.S. Remember, food talk, new words, and no or very little politics.
Dave Kohler, enjoyed performance on Old School. Can we please hear about your time as a geologist? One geologist to another, hashtag geology.
Can someone please inform Ben that his hair is too organized for Old School? It needs to be slightly shuffled about or something to look slightly unkempt. It's making me uncomfortable. That's what Old School's all about, being unkempt. Great show, guys. I wish Old School went on a lot longer. It's already like 2.5 hours. How much longer can we go?
Old School is a lot of fun, and I appreciate that all these people enjoy it because I know Cenk loves to do it, and he does it because he knows the fans love it too.
All right, back on TYT. Got a lot of comments for you. Elsie says, AOC giving us the view from the inside has been exciting, informative, and also why couldn't anyone else do this for the public? Grateful for her behind the scenes info. Speaking of that, if you want behind the scenes info on how the Just Democrats found her, make sure you check out the post game from yesterday if you're a member. If not, perfect time to become a member because you get a week free trial, okay? tyt.com/holiday to get that week-long free trial. Sign On writes in, anytime I hear that a candidate is pro-business or a former businessman, I immediately lose trust in them. I work in the corporate world and I'm around people like that. None of them are trustworthy. Give me someone who's pro-worker instead. Tommy Too Strong, which is an awesome name and handle, says, Deval Patrick is currently managing director at Mitt Romney's Bain Capital. Amazing that alone wasn't enough to dissuade him from running and prevent establishment Democrats from getting excited about it. No, their greed knows no bounds. Deval Patrick knew that he wanted to run for president, but he couldn't help himself. He worked at Bain Capital anyway, and partly the greed, but partly because everyone he knows in the club thinks working for Bain Capital is awesome. He doesn't think that that's a downside. That's the same reason Hillary Clinton took $675,000 for 3 speeches at Goldman Sachs. Everyone she knew applauded her. Bravo! Great job on the speaking engagements at Goldman Sachs.
But especially since the last election, like seriously? Like how little do you know about what is going on in this country that you think you're gonna run in the primary that we're gonna have, which is going to be they used to call it a Charlie Foxtrot during World War II. Look it up. It is gonna be a mess. And then there's the people who are polling at like 1%. Like, what do you think is gonna happen? And seriously, how many random governors that you've never heard of think that they really have a shot against the 10 well-known frontrunners?
Yeah, they just can't help themselves.
Thankfully, Avenatti's not running.
And by the way, Obama, who beat the living crap out of Mitt Romney using his experience at Bain, crushed him in the commercials based on his work at Bain. Meanwhile, has his buddy Deval Patrick working at Bain, going, great job, Deval, way to go.
That's true.
I bet this will help. I'm backing you.
Yeah.
And somebody asked me the other day, is Obama gonna back Biden? No, he's not. Obama's gonna look to find the winner. He never thought Biden was gonna win. He threw Biden under the bus to support Hillary Clinton last time.
What if Biden's one of the last 2?
Oh, if he's between Biden and Sanders, and then yes, Obama will be the most enthusiastic Biden supporter you've ever seen. All right, last one here. YouTube super chat. We haven't done that in a while. Luck Dragon writes in, huge props to John for the Star Trek reference. As a Trekkie since 1987.
Damn.
And I think he meant in a 5-year-old. Really, wow. I aspire to reflect the best parts of the Federation.
That sounds nerdy, but how awesome would it be if there were a lot of people that felt that?
Yeah, well, that would be great.
Republicans would hate it. There's no money. Everybody they just follow their passions in life.
There's literally free lunches. They just appear magically.
I've never seen Cole. I've never seen Cole.
Yeah, but and there is a Trump character in the original Star Trek, the one where you fire your
phaser.
Phaser. Why did I forget phaser? I'm immediately eliminated from being a real Star Trek fan. That's right. You fire your phaser at the monster, and it only grows in size. That's the perfect representation of Trump. Anyway, he finishes by saying, "FYI, you all in secular talk are to thank for turning me from conservative to progressive."
Damn.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Luck Dragon, thank you for using YouTube Super Chat, for making that comment, for agreeing to the Federation principles, but most of all for being open-minded.
Yes.
That's the most important part. Thank you.
And for your reference to the never-ending story. Thank you for that too.
Okay, all right, what's next?
Okay, a little fun story for you. An out and proud white nationalist was actually involved in helping to write the GOP's largest state platform this year. It seems crazy, but it's true. Robert Myers is a 74-year-old activist who's been involved in GOP politics for literally decades. At the Texas Republican Party's 2018 convention, Ray Myers was a part of a select group of activists charged with crafting the platform for the biggest and most influential state party in the country. I mean, it's Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas, including the willingness to accept people who are white nationalists. So why are we saying this? How do we know? Well, if you bring this up, you're gonna see a posting you put on social media saying, "Damn right I'm a white nationalist and very proud of it." So proud that the P in proud is capitalized. So very proud of it. Now you might think, well, that's crazy, saying that like you do. And so people reached out to him and they got some follow-up comments from him. Why is he a white nationalist? What does that actually mean? He says, "I am Anglo and I'm very proud of it, just like black people and brown people are proud of their race. I am a patriot, I'm very proud of my country, and white nationalist, all that means is America first. That's exactly what that means. That's where the president's at, that's where I'm at, and that's where every solid patriotic American is. It doesn't have anything to do with race or anything else." Well, you say that. You said it means just America first. Hypothetically, nationalist could mean that, but you put the white there, and then you said it doesn't have anything to do with race. But not only is white one of the 2 words in that label, but you put it first. It's before the nation part, actually, but not about race. So are you reassured?
How could it not be about race when you said white nationalist? But second of all, he says every proud American should be a white nationalist. How about black Americans? Should they also be white nationalists? How about Asian Americans? Should they also be white nationalists? But for Republicans, it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be racist and feel good. Right? Logic is optional.
You want to have some more fun?
Yeah.
So Myers agrees with Trump's claim that the media is the enemy of the people and said the left is pushing a narrative to make white people ashamed of their heritage and to cast nationalists as racist right-wing Nazis, which he insisted is the furthest damn thing from the truth ever. We're just patriotic Americans, just like anybody else. I'm a Tea Party guy, and I've got brown and black and American Indians in our Tea Parties. I mean, just like Black Lives Matters, white lives matter too. If you're trying to reassure us that you're not a racist, I wouldn't throw that slogan out, but we're all in the same melting pot. Now, why can't we say as Anglos that we're proud? So first of all, I would say overall, this is just a meta point about pride in general. I come from the George Carlin school of pride. Be proud of something that you have accomplished or achieved in life, not something that you got simply because you happen to come out of one particular vagina rather than another. Okay, being white isn't something that I've strived to be. And finally, what? I achieved it. No, I was just born that way. That's every single white person. Most of us very lazy, okay, lazy in parts of our life, lazy in the white parts of our life as well. It's not an achievement, it's not an accomplishment. Being able to grab the rim of a basketball. That's an accomplishment. Like being able to get a high score on the essay, that's an accomplishment. You're white, it just happened. You wouldn't be proud to be 6'2" or have, what does Carlin say, a predisposition for colon cancer. Why are you proud of being white? It's just genetics.
So now some right-wingers say, oh yeah, but the rest of the world is also racist. And that's true, that's true. So for example, I'm of Turkish heritage, so let's talk about that for a second, because I want you guys to understand that it isn't like, oh, white people are bad and they're the only ones who shouldn't be proud, and we're gonna keep white people down in a country that's majority white and run by whites. Okay, anyway, so I'll use my example, right? So are Turks being proud of, are they proud of being Turks in Turkey? Yes, they're enormously proud, right? But the same thing that John said applies to them, right? Like, why are you proud to be randomly born in that tract of land in the world? Now, if you say, hey, there's different parts of my culture that I'm proud of, Turks are very friendly, that's a good part, there's some bad parts, right? So that's a different thing. If you were to say, hey, listen, here's a wonderful thing that Anglos have done. Okay, all right, great. There's also some terrible things that Anglos have done, right? So, but the reason I bring it up overall is, it's different. In Turkey, Turks are obviously the majority. Kurds are the minority. If Kurds were to say, hey, I'm proud of being Kurdish, it is a way of saying, hey, I don't want the majority to oppress me and make me feel inferior. And so it makes sense in that context to be proud of being Kurdish because you're standing up for yourself, okay? If the Turks turn around to the Kurds and go, we're proud of being Turkish, well, that has a different connotation, right? Because they're in the majority and they already rule Turkey, and oftentimes, especially in the past, but still to this day, don't give Kurds the same exact rights that Turkish citizens have. I know they would deeply object to that, but it's certainly true in the past where they didn't let them sing in their own language, teach their language in schools, et cetera, right? So the context matters. We're not telling you should be embarrassed to be white. We're just saying it's a majority white country that has been ruled by white people for a long, long time. And yes, we had one president that was half black. Great, but look at that, the exception proves the rule, right? Yeah. So you're not oppressed, brother, you're just not oppressed. If you were in a country where whites were the minority and there was oppression, then we'd have your back. And we'd say, yeah, let's go help you. That's not the case here.
Yeah.
But they don't do context, and that's why they just can't understand. They're like, I don't get it, man. Black people say their lives matter. I know, it's because they haven't mattered. That's why this slogan exists. There's no one who thinks, man, cops are brutal to white people. Oh, they're wonderful to blacks and Latinos, but man, what they do to white people.
Yeah,
yeah. Cops could be, by the way, overshoot everyone, disproportionately African Americans and minorities. It's not to say that cops are wonderful to white people, but they're not disproportionately bad to white people. This is all obvious to a lot of people, but it's obviously not obvious to a lot of right wingers who really feel like they're the victims.
Yeah. And also, we've been too fair because we're trying to make sense of these arguments as if they're being proffered in good faith. They're not. These people are racist, and so how do I know that? I can't get into his head. You can see it right there. It looks thick. But we do know the platform that they produced. So let's talk about what made it into that extremely influential Texas platform. The 2018 platform includes a demand for using English and only English voting ballots, the reasonable use of profiling to defeat radical Islamic terrorists, a condemnation of participation in the UN as a threat to US sovereignty, an abolition of the refugee resettlement program, the prohibition of any sort of immigration amnesty, a constitutional amendment defining citizenship as those born to a citizen of the United States or through naturalization, among many others. So many of those components have to do with creating different classes effectively of people who deserve recognition or concern or government attention and those who do not. Setting up a class system based on citizenship technically, but citizenship that would be routed through our current demographics and a number of other explicitly pro-white, like only English. Yeah, it's a huge problem that currently they're available in multiple languages. One other quick thing, just to provide a little bit more context on this guy. He was also part of an effort from the party's right wing back in 2010 to replace House Speaker Joe Straus, who is Jewish, sending out an email to his Tea Party group announcing that We finally found a Christian conservative who decided not to be pushed around by the Joe Strauss thugs.
So now that's really relevant, other than the obvious anti-Semitism, because Joe Strauss is a Republican. So it isn't about ideology, it's about we found a good Christian conservative to replace the Jewish thug. Okay, all right, fascinating. And so look, you're right, we're being way too kind and fair. The last part of the different things that he wants in the policy was to take away birthright citizenship. So that even actually goes further than what John was saying. It's random that you were born here or random that you were born white. He's saying, if you take away birthright citizenship, I don't even want you to have citizenship for the same reason that I have it. I was born here, you were born here, we're both citizens. But no, a lot of the immigrants whose parents were not citizens are minorities. So I don't want them to have the same rights. Why? I'm a white nationalist. So in a best case scenario, he's too stupid to realize white nationalist by definition means racist. That's what racists call themselves, white nationalists. They are for the white nation and not for any other skin color or minority in this country. That's his best case scenario. But the reality is, no, he knows what he's saying. But what's amazing is that even guys who proudly declare themselves white nationalists turn around and go, I'm not racist. Okay.
And also, what do you bet the odds are that this guy who calls himself a white nationalist is against identity politics?
Nearly 100%. Not getting that he's literally for the white identity.
Yeah. I think we do have to take our last break, and then we're gonna have, we're gonna take a little tour into a New Hampshire high school, and they're gonna sing a little song for us. It's gonna be very uplifting and racist.
Okay, fun segment, I think, though, when we come back. All right, we'll talk about it. You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this. You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there, okay? So I can see Bart.
That's really cool.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
Look at this masterpiece that I drew.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
They'd rather lose to Republicans than have a progressive win with them. That's how dumb the corporate Democrats are.
It's the Democrats who lull you to sleep, and at the end of the day, they're the ones who push the right-wing agenda.
Whoever wrote that, I'm sure they were typing with one hand and going like this with you. The Democrats are dead. The way you feel right now, that's how a chump feels. Do not freak out.
Public opinion, your opinion, has zero effect on public policy. The richest people in the country, their opinion has a direct effect.
Leslie Byrne, a Democrat from Virginia, describes that when she went to Congress, she was told by a colleague, quote, always lean to the green. And to clarify, she went on, he was not an environmentalist.
Our government actively serves the richest and the most powerful and turns its back on everyone else.
Finally, end the corruption and get money out of politics and give us back our democracy. All right, back on the Young Turks. Jinxano writes in on Twitter, white isn't a heritage. You can be Irish or German or Nordic, etc. Ain't no place called white land. Although there is a place called Greenland. And so if you're a green nationalist, that might be a different story. And I want to thank Nate Clark from Massachusetts, who just participated in the Amplify program, $150, you get a t-shirt. And 3 journalism students get Young Turks memberships. TYT.com/amplify to take part. John, what's next?
That is awesome. News is next. A teacher in a New Hampshire high school has been put on leave after students in that class actually sang a song about the KKK as part of a school project. Here's a part of that song.
The streets, white masks on our heads, blood beneath our feet, laughing till they're dead. Ha ha ha! The Klan that was formed was 1865. Got shut down within 10 years, but we'll come back alive. Hey, KKK, KKK, let's kill all the blacks. Burn across on their front yard and hope they don't come back. Oh, KKK, KKK, no longer politics. Keeping civil rights and is our true new world gift. Good form of white supremacy. Only got unmasked by John F. Kennedy. Recruiting dropped to none, but we cannot be stopped. It's far too fun, so come along and watch those black folk run. KKK, let's kill politics. Keeping civil rights inept is our new world gift. Now that we have left the country with these scars, there's no way they can go to school without hearing of us. Grand wizards left behind, one great big legacy. We're here to stay, big shoes to fill in this society. Oh, KKK, KKK, let's kill all the blacks.
Wow, okay. Some of the lyrics hard to hear, obviously, but there's references to the founding of the KKK, how they're coming back even though they were shut down, or whatever, calls to kill people based on their race. So this is a result of a project where you're supposed to use events from Reconstruction in A Christmas Carol. Technically, this abides by that, although obviously got the teacher in a lot of trouble. And so I want to thank, in particular, the student that took that video that you saw. So that is Chloe Harris, a 16-year-old who was told not to film any of the performances, but decided to anyway, because apparently this sort of thing is pretty common.
Yeah, so we had a really interesting project when I was in 8th grade. We had a substitute teacher in history who was wonderful and had us actually refight the Civil War in a game. You would have loved it, okay? And it was the North and the South, and I was on the South, and she put honestly the better students in the South because we had a lot less resources, et cetera, and we won. In our version, the South won. Sorry. Okay.
Great.
But nobody sang racist songs. That's crazy. Like, you could study the racism of the time, but the minute the kids start singing KKK all the way or whatever they were saying, no.
They literally said, let's kill all the blacks.
No, you can't. No, come on, man. You got to have some common sense. No, you can't do that. That's not fun. And look, it's a little bit telling of the culture that the kids thought that was a funny song, right? And it's certainly telling that do they have any black friends? I can't imagine that they do. Obviously, I don't know them personally, but like, did their black friends find that funny if they had any? I would very seriously doubt it, right? But it's mainly on the teacher. You got to put an end to it. You can't encourage it. You can't abide by it. As Richard Ojeda was said, I can't accept that, right? Easiest thing in the world. Don't do it. And so now it's a mess.
Yeah, and supposedly the Chloe Harris said that the lyrics to the song was distributed beforehand. I don't know for sure if the teacher had access to that, but allowing it to go ahead if you did know that that's what they were going to sing seems insane. You want to play a quick game in reference to something you said? So you talked about you don't know if they have black friends. Do you want to guess what percentage of this city, Dover, is black or African American?
Okay, I'm going to guess 1.5%.
It is 1.7%. It is a 90.
I'm good at games.
Look, it's New Hampshire. New Hampshire is one of the whitest parts of the country, but that is part of why you get something like this. I mean, I don't think that's enough for a 16-year-old to think that the KKK is something that in 2018 you should be venerating. That requires, I think, a failure on the part of the families. Obviously, there's probably some political influence, the media, that's allowing them to think that Nazis and the KKK are no longer objectively bad. That it's a fight that we have to refight every year for some reason. I think that probably influences it as well.
Yeah, it's just some degree of empathy for our fellow human beings would have prevented this.
Yeah.
And yeah, come on, if you're a teacher, step up. Whether you saw the notes ahead of time or not, and not just because it's the wrong thing to do, not just because it would be terribly offensive, rightfully so, if there were any black students and they walked by and they heard a class singing, "Let's kill all the blacks." How did that not occur to you, right? But also because when that video comes out, think about how much trouble those kids are in. Like, you have a responsibility to the whole class, including and I don't know why I'm looking out for the people who did the wrong thing here, but I just want to, I just can keep it real to the kids who are singing too. They could get in massive trouble.
Yeah.
So it's a terrible dereliction of responsibility to let them do that. Instead, you should have a conversation about why it's wrong. Not as, you didn't even have to be accusatory if you stopped them from singing it. It could have been a teachable moment, if you will.
Yeah. And again, to Chloe, a great job in being willing to do that, even though you could get in trouble, you could get ostracized for pointing out the racism that apparently you see quite often. Being willing to spread it so that we all know is a courageous act. With that said, why don't we jump to one more story? The funeral for former President George H.W. Bush is going on, and obviously a lot of speeches and things like that. But it also provided a unique opportunity for 3 former presidential families and 1 current to get together. And let's see how it worked in practice. Here is a handshake between some of the parties.
From Hillary Clinton to President Trump.
And a handshake from President Obama.
And Mrs. Obama as well.
Let's. So they mentioned there in the voiceover, you heard something about the head nod. Why don't we zoom in on that and play it one more time? So look, this is a bizarre situation to have for a lot of different reasons, and it takes a special event like the death of a former president to bring them all together. But like one pair he was saying that you weren't actually a citizen for literally years. Another, it's like she just lost, and he's saying that he says every day he talks about Hillary Clinton, how she should be locked up, and they have to nod and they have to shake hands and things like that. What a weird world we live in.
Yeah, I actually. Well, we just found out they don't have to shake hands.
Well, not all of them, I guess, but some of them did.
Right, because Melania looked like she was gesturing towards shaking the hands of the Clintons, and Hillary Clinton's like, in other words, no, I won't be shaking your hand, sit back down. The most you're gonna get from me is, okay.
Yeah, you know what she was thinking? How dare she?
How dare she? Okay, so I don't blame her. I mean, first of all, Donald Trump has said horrific things about every one of them, every single one of them, right?
Probably Melania even.
Yeah, and that's true too. But about Hillary Clinton, he constantly talks about, to this day, about how she should be put in prison. Yeah, no, I'm not shaking your hand. I got no interest in that. No, I know that Washington fetishizes civility, right? So normally, this would be terribly uncivil. I'm pretty sure that Trump began the lack of civility, okay? By the way, the guy that nobody's noticing, 2 things that people are not noticing. One is Jimmy Carter is also there.
Oh,
guy
no,
never mentioned.
We noticed, actually.
Yeah.
Why don't we go to Jimmy Carter?
Yeah.
Man, he's just thinking, I'm still alive.
I cured one of the only diseases ever cured on the planet and gave peace in the Middle East. Do I ever get any credit? No. Nobody even thought to shake his hand.
Yeah.
Right.
Trump doesn't know who that is. He has no idea.
And the second favorite thing that I liked was Bill Clinton. So Hillary Clinton's like, yeah, okay, right? And Bill Clinton's like, so okay, watch this. She gives the nod. Okay, like don't even try it. And look at Bill Clinton smile.
Man, what a bunch there.
Literally bit his lip there.
God, what a bunch of people.
So I always think like this whole lying in state, John McCain, George H.W. Bush, they covered for days and days. I'm like, what are we doing? It's a funeral, right? I don't get it. I don't understand why we're watching this.
People want to visit. It's like in Game of Thrones, you know?
No, lying in state's totally fine. The people's obsession with watching it is weird. Yeah. But hey, we got 30 seconds of entertainment out of it. Now I get it.
Done.
Okay. All right, guys, we're out of time. Rebel Headquarters is next. We had a wonderful post game where we're talking about the Sanders Institute gathering there, where all the progressives came in. TYT.com/join. Bye-bye. All right, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. I'm gonna go straight to our guest. Let's have fun. Joining me now is Monica Miller. She is Senior Counsel for the American Humanist Association. Monica, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No problem. Monica, given that you are with the American Humanist Association, I assume you're pro-humans.
I sure am, and I'm also pro non-humans.
Okay, well, we're gonna get to the non-humans in a second because she's not kidding. But who's against the humans?
Okay, that's a question I haven't been asked before.
Yes.
I mean, ostensibly, I could name some people, but
no, but it's a bit of a literal question, a little tongue-in-cheek. But you're senior counsel. You were lead counsel in 25 federal cases. So there are people that are on the other side arguing against the humanist position. So what do they argue?
You know, it's not actually the humanist position, it's the position of separation of church and state. So our argument is just that the government has to be neutral when it comes to religion, and that's what the Constitution requires. So it's not really the humanist position. And in fact, some of our cases, we have Christian plaintiffs or plaintiffs who are agnostic. So it's not a humanist argument we're making, it's a separation of church and state argument.
Okay, so let's back up then. For the folks that don't know, what is a humanist?
A humanist is someone that doesn't usually believe in God, but believes you can be good without God. So we have, we use science and, rational thought to try to solve the world's problems, and are compassionate in our approach to life, and have concern for the planet, have concern for other species that are on the planet. So it's atheism, but it's also a lot of values that come with it.
Yes, a whole pro-humans and the planet seems dangerous. So I was always amused when Bill O'Reilly back in the day would attack the humanists. I mean, he almost sounded like a Ferengi.
Right.
Like, who's against the humans? Anyway.
Right.
But humanists could be atheists, agnostic, etc. But as you point out, in these cases, you're arguing for separation of church and state. And one reason that a Christian would want to bring a case like that is there's a lot of denominations of Christianity which will rule them all. And so I wonder, because you were involved in so many of these cases, does that question ever come up when you talk to the folks on the other side who say, no, we should have giant crosses everywhere and we should establish religion in the 10 Commandments? Do they ever clarify whether the Methodists or the Lutherans should be in charge?
I mean, they don't clarify, but they certainly make an assumption that all Christians want to have the government endorsing their symbols, and that's simply not true. We actually had a pastor who wrote, we didn't have him, he wrote it on his own, in this cross case, the fact that he thinks it's blasphemous to use the cross for a symbol of the military, because in his denomination, they look at Jesus as a pacifist, and his dying on the cross symbolized to him an act of pacifism and not violence. So there's plenty of Christians that think government and religion should be private, and some Christians don't even revere the cross as their holy symbol. I think the Mormons, for instance, consider themselves Christian and don't actually use the cross as their symbol.
Right. And look, when in history has religion been used by the military for evil? I mean, I remember there was a certain army that had on their buckle belts, or belt buckles, I think, the slogan, God is with us. But it was actually in German, Gott mit uns. Those were the Nazis. I believe it has been co-opted by government for bad purposes in the past. So it's a great point by the pastor.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more specifically about the city of Bladensburg. Tell us about that case. What is that case about?
Okay, so we have a giant 40-foot Christian cross that's towering over one of the busiest counties busiest intersections in Prince George's County. The cross was originally put up by the town of Bladensburg, or on town of Bladensburg property, and now it's owned by the Maryland National Capital Parks and Planning Commission, which is a bi-county agency. It's spent over $100,000 on this Christian symbol. It specifically and very elaborately rededicated it as a memorial to all war veterans. So although our opponents continue to talk about it as a World War I memorial, that's really only half of its history. The second half of its history has been a dedicate at least, and this is assuming that the person that looks at this cross knows it's a war memorial to begin with, which we challenge, but assuming that one recognizes this as a war memorial, it's one for all veterans. And of course, as a cross, it's really just for Christian veterans.
No, their arguments are so hilarious. It's that it's amusing that they don't get laughed out of court. It's preposterous. I mean, so because when I see a giant 40-foot cross, I don't think Christianity. No, that's not the message I get all. I think World War I. Nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks that. Of course they think it's an ode to Christianity on government property.
Yeah. No, actually, it's funny you say that because they were kind of laughed out of court in the Fourth Circuit oral arguments when they were presenting their position that this is just a military symbol. Judge Wynn actually took deep offense to it. I mean, he was sort of laughing, but he's like, "Are you seriously trying to tell me that this Christian symbol, the one that I, revere and respect, is a symbol of the military?" And they kind of kept going at it, and he was just like, "Are you serious? I mean, it's news to me that this is a military symbol. I've always seen it as the symbol for Jesus Christ." So it's certainly a disingenuous argument, and I think that's manifest when they say, that it's a non-Christian symbol, but removing it would be hostile towards religion. So it's kind of, you can't make both arguments, but they do.
Yeah. Well, if it's not, if it's a military symbol having nothing to do with Christianity, why would it be hostile to religion?
Right.
Yeah. In any of the cases that you deal with, sometimes what they do is they'll put other religious symbols around it, and they'll, they'll be like, "Okay, here's a giant cross, but that's okay. I put like a Hanukkah bush next to it, so now it's not religious anymore." Well, first of all, that's also religious. Has anyone ever put up a Festivus tree to try to cover up for a cross?
Frankly, this cross is so large, it would be virtually impossible. I mean, it would take up the whole intersection, and it would make it kind of dangerous because it is a three-way intersection where there's a lot of heavy traffic. That has not come up, and in fact, the land deeds basically preclude putting up more monuments on this plot of land. I don't know why, besides the fact that it's a intersection, but no one has put up a Festivus pole. I'm certain they wouldn't allow us to put up a Festivus pole. There's a flagpole. Maybe we could co-opt it as one, but that's that wouldn't solve the issue.
See, you can tell Monica Miller is an excellent attorney at law because she immediately but subtly corrected me that it's a Festivus pole and not a Festivus tree. Okay. All right, Monica, let's move on to the non-humans.
Sure.
So you are for, and this is a trip, personhood rights for non-human animals. Okay, first let's note the absurdity of that. I mean, next thing you're gonna tell me is that you're for personhood for inanimate objects like corporations.
Right, because that's never happened. No, it's exactly that. I mean, it's the paradox that a corporation has more or equal rights to humans, and yet are species that are sentient, that are autonomous. Elephants, chimpanzees, living, breathing, autonomous beings have no rights. They're legally property. They have no more rights than a couch, a chair, pencil. And sometimes people are shocked by that because they assume that welfare legislation, like you have to have a certain amount of water or food, that kind of thing, equates to rights, but it doesn't. Those are just statutes that give certain parameters for how you can maintain them, but those aren't rights for the being themselves.
So when Michael Vick went to prison for the dog fighting, he was violating a statute, but it wasn't a statute that necessarily gave the dogs any rights.
Right.
It just made it illegal to have dogs do that for us.
Precisely. And so we're looking at it, we're going through the common law, which is flexible, adaptable. It's actually the avenue in which a lot of slaves gain their personhood, and it gives the courts a lot of authority to shape and change the law without having to go through the legislature. And we've argued that's the proper course for the type of right we're looking at, which is bodily liberty. We're not asking for them to have voting rights or the ability to do certain things that are kind of exclusively for humans. We're asking for them to just have their right to exercise the autonomy that we know they have, and that's through bodily liberty, vindicated through the writ of habeas corpus. So it's kind of it's not a 5-minute conversation, but that's the gist.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna wrap it up in 5 minutes. Okay, so in fact, I have one last question for you. Look, I'm not sure that that I agree with you on that, and it'd be an interesting, longer conversation. Maybe we should have you back on and talk about that more. But this I know for sure, that animals that are at least alive should have more rights than inanimate objects like corporations.
Absolutely.
So I'll back you on that. So my last question is, where do you draw the line? So dogs, I presume, will have rights, but do cows, do ants? It's a literal question. I'm not trying to be facetious.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's sort of a two-part answer. I mean, one is that right now we are just looking at autonomy as the basis for the right to bodily liberty. So if an animal has a proven ability to understand its surroundings and to execute its desires, then it should be at least allowed to have a remedy to effectuate that. It's kind of hard to explain, but the second part to that is really that the courts are well equipped to modify the law as tailored to certain situations. So if they allow an elephant to have the right to bodily liberty, that doesn't mean the dog gets the right to bodily liberty. That doesn't mean the dog's liberty is even being infringed by being owned. We're just looking at the science of imprisoning elephants or chimpanzees, animals that we know thrive in wild, large environments and are put in zoos, and where their bodily liberty is so restricted that that it's inherently violative of their integrity, their bodily liberty.
It's fascinating. I would love to do a mock trial of a dolphin's rights versus ExxonMobil's rights.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, so we should look into that. All right, Monica Miller, fighting the good fight on behalf of humans and non-humans, and so is the American Humanist Association. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. All right, that was fun. When we come back, someone fighting for a better democracy through ranked choice voting, okay? And it had a direct result, of course, the Republicans are challenging. We'll explain when we come back.
I'm here today to announce the program known as DACA is being rescinded.
We don't run our own country. We've lost our democracy, and all we have left is rage.
Where are the Democrats? I would be on every cable news channel screaming and yelling and talking about what the Republicans are doing right now.
How do you expect us to get excited to show up to the polls for these loser Democrats? How come we have nothing but cowards? We'll never fight. Primaries are everything.
Building a great wall on the southern border.
You have politicians who fearmonger about disenfranchised groups.
The first attacker came through the visa lottery.
Now they are against legal immigrants.
Ending chain migration.
They don't want people from those countries coming here because they're fucking racist. This guy's an absolute monumental disgrace to all of us as Americans.
I ordered to launch precision strikes on targets.
That is what I was warning about for literally years on this program. This is what they promised they would do if they got into power, and what do you know? They did it. I've now shown dozens of videos on the Young Turks of cops handcuffing people who are bleeding to death. His life means nothing. We have been trained to be cowards, so we're gonna handcuff that guy bleeding to death.
What does this law mean? These are all just basic BS coverings.
To every politician who is taking donations from the NRA, shame on you.
They said that this was impossible, but now we're beginning to move that boulder. And at the end, we'll get our democracy back. Primary the living hell out of these Democrats, and let's take over the party. That's a ghost ship. Let's board it, and let's take it.
All right, back on Rebel headquarters. Joining me now is Karen McCormick. She's co-founder of the Committee for Ranked Choice Voting. Fascinating. We've talked about this a little bit in the past, but a lot of on-the-ground details now that the elections have happened. Kara, welcome to Rebel headquarters.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Cenk.
No problem. Great to have you here. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So you worked in politics for a stunning number of folks for a stunning number of years. But ranked choice voting is new, relatively new, and so I'm really curious about the implementation of it. So they have it in Maine now, and you advocated for getting it implemented in Maine. Before we get to the results, I actually want to talk a little bit about how you got that done. It wasn't easy. What was the process for making that the system of voting in Maine?
So we started the battle for ranked choice voting about 4 years ago. The first thing we did was we got 5 people together to petition the Secretary of State to put a law on the ballot which would have ranked choice voting in all federal elections and all state elections. And we gathered over the course of about a year, 10% of the signatures. We needed 61,123 signatures, which we got. We got on the ballot. We won an election in November of 2016. We won with the second highest most votes of any citizen referendum in the history of the state of Maine. And we thought we had ranked choice voting, and it was going to be the law of the state of Maine. It was the law of the state of Maine through the Citizens Initiative process. And on January 7th, it became the law. And about 4 days later, we realized that the legislature was going to repeal the law and take it off the books, which is exactly what they did in a special session, a late night session of the legislature that they called specifically for this purpose. In one of the most anti-democratic things that I've ever seen, they repealed the ranked choice voting law on October 23rd of 2017. So luckily in the state of Maine, we have something in our constitution called the people's veto. So that allows us to not only propose laws and get them passed by the people, but it also allows us to veto laws that they've passed, which we find repellent. So this time what we did is in 88 days in the middle of the winter, we gathered another 80,000 signatures. We had at that time almost 2,000 volunteers in the streets collecting those signatures. We turned them in, we froze the law in place, and we used ranked choice voting for the very first time in the state of Maine on June 12th. And on that same day, we voted again to keep ranked choice voting. And we won this time by an 8% margin.
So Kara, let me guess, the Republicans, as usual, opposed democracy. And I say that not because ranked choice voting is necessarily more democratic, although that argument certainly could be made, but it was a ballot measure. So we passed the ballot measure. They're like, yeah, we don't care about your stinking democracy. But was it just the Republicans, or did some of the establishment Democrats go along as well?
It was the Republicans for the most part. It was the Senate president, but it was also there were also Democrats for sure that were against ranked choice voting, and they, together with the Republicans, were able to repeal the law that we voted for literally in the middle of the night in a special session that they called just to do that. And it was stunning to watch. I was in the gallery that night, and I couldn't believe my eyes that these politicians, these elected representatives in Maine, would so ignore the results of a free and fair election and ignore the will of the people of Maine to choose the way that we elect our leaders.
Yeah, well, unfortunately these days it's very believable. South Dakota did it in a ballot measure. Michigan's doing it right now in their lame duck session. They're trying to gut a couple of ballot initiatives. In every one of those cases, it's Republican-led legislatures that are saying, we don't care about democracy, we're not in favor of democracy, and if you vote in a way that disadvantages the Republican Party, we will just illegally get rid of the ballot measure. It's unbelievable, but here we are.
It is, and I've worked in politics for 25 years, and it still was stunning to watch it happen right on the board before your very eyes. When we knew how hard we had worked to pass it. But the great news is that at least in Maine, we had the power to take it back again. And so now, I don't know if you know that saying, the obstacle is the way. But by them repealing it, it just made us stronger. It had the people come together in such a way that they really saw it as a crucible. They saw it as their, they're in their DNA. They got out into the streets. It was one of the coldest winters ever in the history of Maine. We collected signatures during what was called a bomb cyclone, and people just owned it. They took it back. It was awesome. It was, as anti-democratic and horrible as it was to see, the beauty of the people rising up and sort of going through this crucible together and then coming through it should give everyone hope. Should give everyone hope.
That is a good, inspiring story. Did you say that it was a bomb cyclone?
That's what they called the storm that came through. It was called a bomb cyclone. And so one of the things we did in the middle of it was sent messages around to each other saying, here's how to collect signatures during a bomb cyclone. Make sure that you get a gel pen so the ink won't freeze. Make sure that you, stuff your pen inside your glove, in between getting signatures. It was really cold.
Now that's folks fighting for democracy, okay? And I think that bomb cyclone is one of the nicknames for Donald Trump. Okay, so now let's talk about the results. So you got ranked choice voting, and then what happened in Maine District 2?
So in Congressional District 2, we had our first ranked choice voting election in June. We chose our Democratic nominee for governor, our Republican nominee for governor using ranked choice voting. And then we had in the general election, the first ever races for US House and US Senate using ranked choice voting. And in the second Congressional District, we had 4 candidates for Congress. One was a Democrat. His name was Bruce Poliquin. He was the incumbent Republican politician. The Democrat is called Jared Golden, and he was the Democratic politician. And then we had 2 independents who ran, a woman called Tiffany Bond and a man named Will Hoare. And in the first round of counting in ranked choice voting, Bruce Poliquin and Jared Golden were the top 2, each with roughly 46% of the vote. And in the second round of counting, or when the ranked choice voting kicked in, Jared Golden moved ahead from the plurality vote into the majority, and so was declared the winner of that election. Although we were just in court today because the Republicans are still fighting ranked choice voting in the courts. We're in federal. Yeah.
So let's break it down a little bit further. So do you only go to the second round if no one gets a majority in the first round?
That's correct. If somebody gets 50% plus 1 in the first round, they're the winner.
Okay, so and that makes sense because it's logical. You could add up all the other votes and you're still not going to pass 50.1, right?
That's right.
Right. So if Poliquin, the Republican, had won outright, then it would have been over, but he didn't. So it was. But he did have the lead in the first round, 46.4 to 45.5.
That's correct.
And apparently the people who liked the independents liked Golden better than they liked Poliquin, so they ranked him higher. And when you put their votes in, then Golden wins in the second round. So what's the Poliquin's argument here? I mean, you have ranked choice voting. That's what the system produced. So what's he claiming?
So he is claiming in federal court, United States District Court, with a brand new judge, Lance E. Walker, who's a Trump-appointed judge, is claiming that ranked choice voting is unconstitutional under the United States Constitution. He says that or his lawyers say that it violates the Article 1, Section 2 of the United States Constitution, which says that a vote should be is of the people. And they are saying that of the people in our Constitution, or chosen by the people in our Constitution, means chosen by a first past the post plurality vote.
Yeah, I don't think that ranked choice voting makes people not people. So I'm not sure that that's a sound argument. There's still people.
Well, the judge doesn't think so either. They asked for a TRO. They asked to halt the counting of the ballots, to stop the election, to declare him the winner immediately, to stop this crazy scheme. And the judge, again, a Trump-appointed judge, he'd been on the job for about 3 weeks at the time that he heard our case the first time. He said, no, there is not a constitutional infirmity here. Ranked choice voting is constitutional. I'm not going to stop the election. And we went back to court today and argued again long. I think we were there for about 5 hours today, but this has been quite a battle.
So Karen, last thing here.
Imagine.
Last thing here, real quick. So I'm not seeing this wrong, right? If it turns out that the other candidates that were in the race that came in third and fourth were, for example, libertarians, and they had ranked Poliquin ahead, he would have won, even if he was losing in the first round. So it's not like it's rigged against Republicans. In a lot of cases, it could actually help Republicans.
Oh, absolutely not. This is one of the things that, all that Republicans and Democrats have to do under a ranked choice voting system to win is to put forward a candidate that's attractive to Democrats, Republicans, and independents. You want to be the most attractive candidate to the broadest number of people. You want to get over 50% of the vote. If you're not somebody's first choice, then you definitely want to be their second choice. And these candidates get elected with a nice broad majority of the people.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful system.
Yeah. Winning with a majority of the votes sounds like, a democracy.
Right.
Okay. Karen McCormick, co-founder of the Committee for Ranked Choice Voting. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Shank. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Take care.
You too. All right, we're out of time, guys. tyt.com/join or tyt.com/jank to become a member. And I'm gonna tell you all about the Sanders Institute gathering that happened in Vermont with a lot of the progressives that backed Bernie Sanders in the post game for the members. I'll see you there.